He is ready, right?
Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing. I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You don't usually get a stock tip from a 16-year-old, but I'm here to tell you about a different kind of stock. It's called Better Futures, a stock for social change that's not about making money. Instead, you invest to help students like me go to college. This is beyond a simple donation. It's the opportunity for America to invest in its kids and take an active stake in the future of the country. The return on your investment isn't money. What you get back is knowing you protected our potential. So one day, that potential can grow up to become surgeons and architects, executives and engineers, people who can change the future just by being a part of it. My name is Alicia, and I'm your dividend.
Invest in better futures with UNCF. Visit uncf.org/invest. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. A public service announcement brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
This is Nnamdi Asamoah. I play football for the Philadelphia Eagles, but what I do off the field with United Way might be more important. I'm a volunteer tutor and mentor. Why? Because over 1 million kids a year drop out of school, and that's not okay. It takes 12 years to create a graduate, but it takes about the same time to create a dropout. And the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be me, or it could be you. Studies show that if we get to these kids earlier, their chances are better, and kids who read well by 3rd grade are more likely to graduate. So join me in United Way. Suit up and take the pledge. Become a volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor, because when a child succeeds, we all succeed. Give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Take the pledge at unitedway.org. Brought to you by United Way, the Ad Council, and the National Football League.
They'll challenge your authority. They'll try to break your will. They'll push you to the edge of your sanity. Because that's what kids do. But this car is your territory, not theirs. Defend it. Who makes the payments? Who cleans it? Who drives it? You do. That's who. And in here, your word is law. So when you say you won't move until everyone's buckled up, you won't budge an inch. Until you hear that click. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. For more information, visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup.
Let's go inside the mind of a 10-year-old.
I should have worn those earrings today. I like those earrings. Gabby has those awesome earrings. I need to ask her where she got those, but that's just what she would want me to do. I'll have Michaela ask her for me.
Buckle up, Sarah.
Yeah, but then Michaela will be like, why don't you just ask her yourself? That's just like Michaela.
Sarah, buckle up.
Michaela's such a great name. I wish I was called Michaela. There's like a dozen Sarahs in my class.
Hey, we're not hitting the road until you buckle up, honey.
Oh yeah, seatbelt. I forget sometimes because my brain is like busy, you know? I wonder if there's pizza at school today.
Sometimes it can be tough to get through to your kids, but it's not impossible. Always make sure they're wearing their seatbelts, even on short drives. Remember, you have the keys, you have the power. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. Visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup for more information.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth partying with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Dear John, I was hoping it wouldn't come to this, but you've left me no choice. I'm leaving. Uncontrolled high blood pressure is really serious, and lately you seem to really not care. I've been there for you since day one, and I know you think I'm going to keep ticking. But no, my friend, I can quit whenever I want. Why can't we get back to the good times, when we were more active and ate more healthy foods, and you checked on me every once in a while? Is that too much to ask? I don't want to leave, but unless you stop ignoring me, what else am I supposed to do? Remember, when I quit, you quit. Sincerely, your heart.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you. Doing the minimum to control your high blood pressure isn't doing enough. High blood pressure can lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get your blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late. Find out how at heart.org/bloodpressure. Check, change, control. A message from the American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Jason Derulo. I love that music connects to people all over the country. But unfortunately, so does something else. Childhood hunger. 15 million kids struggle with hunger right here in America. And yet, every year, billions of pounds of surplus food in the U.S. go to waste instead of going to the children in need. Feeding America is working to change this. The Feeding America nationwide network of food banks rescues this surplus of food to help provide meals to families in virtually every community in the United States, including yours. But they just can't do this alone. Join me in the fight against hunger in America. For more information on what you can do to get involved, visit feedingamerica.org. That's feedingamerica.org. Together we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America. A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
What are you talking about?
No, it's not him. There is only one more. There is only one more. That's it. One more. Get a rest. No.
They saw your team put up zero effort.
Wake up.
Remember in the old days, they used to have oxygen for them. Where's the oxygen?
Play like absolute just garbage.
This is the Sports Loudmouths.
Yay!
Man. Can you keep it down? I'm trying to introduce here. With Errol Marks and Speedy Petey.
You're not even a has-been. You're a never was. You're a never was.
June 15th, 2023. You are listening to the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy Petey. 631-672-3108 is the number to call. You can go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Sports Loudmouths, which are live right now at 9 p.m. on Wednesdays, 7 p.m. throughout the week. Game on Fridays at 6 p.m. We have a great lineup of shows. Tune in every single week live and in color. You can check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, you name it, we're on it. Twitch, every single platform. Tune in throughout the week by going to and finding out the details by going to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Speedy, what's up?
I see you got a new background there. You're improving your fan base, I see.
I don't know about improving my fan base.
Well, depending on which fans you're taking on, because we all know the Boston fans, they like to make fun of you and take shots.
I could care less what the Boston fans
Yes,
think
we
of
know.
me. I really don't. But hey, listen, if the Boston fans don't like me, hey, I'm doing something right. Thank you to the Boston fans for writing to me, calling me out on everything I do throughout the week, throughout the shows. We really appreciate it, including yours truly. I really appreciate you guys. So there you go. I have all the fans looking at me as I will rap to you throughout a 3-hour show. I'm not literally rapping, but I'm going to give you some information that'll probably piss you off. So thank you to all the fans out there. So we have a great show lined up for you guys. At 9:30, we'll be talking a long time offensive line coach, Jim McNally. He will be joining us for the first time. We've never had Jim on the show. Looking forward to getting him on the show. He's coached in the NFL from 1980 to 2007 with the Bengals, Panthers, Giants, and Bills, and was a consultant with the New York Jets in 2010 and 2011. So we will have him on the show. At 10 o'clock, we will be talking to Cavaliers play-by-play broadcaster and our friend Tim Alcorn. We'll talk about Donovan Mitchell, their run all the way into the playoffs and losing to our New York Knicks. So that'll be fun. I'm sure he'll have his thoughts to it, I'm sure. The Pelicans could trade Zion Williamson before the NBA draft next week. Uh-oh. You know what that means. There is a team out there that have been really gunning for him, really since he was drafted because he wanted to go there, and that's the New York Knicks. I wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks pull the trigger, if something, opens up for the Knicks where they can land Zion Williamson. RJ and him are very close. Could you imagine him, RJ Barrett, and possibly Jalen Brunson as your starting lineup, your big three? That would be interesting. That really would. And young. So will be interesting to see as we move forward closer to the draft. The Wizards are most likely to trade Bradley Beal before free agency begins. This has been going on for years. They gave him a contract. He says he wants to be a Wizard for life. And now all of a sudden, after the season they had this year, he wants to be gone again. And they're looking to move on from him. So they're going to get a boatload of players and a boatload of draft picks for him. Bradley Beal is one of the better guards in the league. He just doesn't play defense. So anybody that brings him in, a.k.a. Boston Celtics, don't expect them to play defense. Multiple reports say that Ja Morant's suspension will be between 25 and 30 games. I've been saying that. It should be. I'm not surprised about this story. Not at all. We'll get into that. Mike Tannenbaum says that DeAndre Hopkins signing with the Patriots will change the entire AFC East. What is he on, drugs? This isn't DeAndre Hopkins 5 years ago. This is DeAndre Hopkins 5 years later. It doesn't make sense. And that just shows you why Mike Tannenbaum is not an executive for any organization, and he works for ESPN. So thank you, Mike, for just pissing me off even more. Chris Jones is absent. Absent from the Chiefs mini camps. He is holding out for a new contract. We will get into Chris Jones. I think he will get it. I don't know how long he is going to get it, but he wants an extension and he wants to be the highest paid defensive lineman in the league, and he should get that. I mean, he's 31, going to be 32. If they give him a 3-year extension, making $26 million, he's right there with Aaron Donald and probably Quinnen Williams. Those are the 3 best defensive tackles in the league. So he deserves it and he should get it. Bracket wars matchup tonight. Number 14 seed GSP, George St. Pierre versus the number 3 seed Pele, and the number 11 seed Mario Lemieux versus the number 6 seed Mike Tyson. So that will be our show tonight. It's going to be fun. I'm sure we're going to have some angry people tonight with some of the topics we're going to get into, as there's a lot of haters out there that just, and by the way, I love the emails. Keep racking in the emails. I will answer to every email question you guys have, and even the insults that you give me. I love it. And I actually love the people that insult me because it just shows me how much they want to listen to me and hate me. So thank you to all the fans that write to us. And I should send you some of the letters that I get for you, Speedy, on some people that love you and some people think you out of your damn mind. But I don't want to hurt your feelings. I'll take the hurt. I'll pretend that I'm you and I answer all your questions. So there you go. Multiple reports believe that Zion Williamson could be traded before or during the NBA 2023 draft, which is next Thursday. The Pelicans are rumored to be interested in G League point guard Scoot. Is it? I'm sorry. Yes. It is Scoot Henderson, who is a projected top 5 pick. Zion has only played over 30 games in a season once in the last 4 seasons. Well, four years of his career. Zion has an average of 25.8 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 3.6 assists per game in 114 games played in the NBA. Zion has also been recently involved in allegations with a porn star. Hold on, let me get this right. Mariah Mills as well. Zion signed a 5-year, $194 million contract with the Pelicans last offseason. However, being that Zion only played 29 games, that money is only partially guaranteed. So when he signed that contract, he had to play a certain amount of games. He did not play that this year. And I don't think it has anything to do with his weight. I know everybody sits here and says, oh, it's Zion Williams' weight. He's not in shape. He was in very good shape last year, as a matter of fact. He was in the best shape of his career. Even when he played for Duke, he was in better shape last year. He's more muscle than he is fat. The problem with Zion Williamson is the way his body is built. He is built like a 6'10" big man, but he's not 6'10". He's 6'7", 6'8". So he's carrying a lot of weight for a guy his size. And it's muscle. It's very much muscle. And I know everybody keeps saying he's fat. He's fat. Has anybody seen Zion Williamson with his shirt off? He has a six-pack. He is in great shape. He's big boned. If you look at my body right now, and obviously if you're not watching the video on Twitter or whatever we're on right now, YouTube, any of the social medias, if you're not watching us, you're listening to us, I'm a big guy. I'm 5'10", and I'm 232 pounds. So I carry a lot of meat on my upper body. Does that mean I'm fat? No, it does not. But Zion Williamson, for his whole career, and it's still a very short career right now, he has been up and down with his weight. And when he came into the league, he was a little bit overweight. He was 285 pounds. He did have a little bit of meat on him. He wasn't fat. I know a lot of people say he's fat. He's not fat. He just has a lot of meat on his muscle. So this story coming out that Zion Williamson could be traded, I'm not surprised with this story. I'm really not. The Pelicans, I believe, have given up on Zion Williamson, and that's because of the injuries. There's a lot of things that are going on behind closed doors with Zion Williamson and his family and the Pelicans organization. There were stories coming out last offseason that him and his family do not want to be in New Orleans. He does not want to be there. He wants to be in a big market. He wants to be in LA or New York. And that could be one of the reasons why he's not pushing himself to play as much as he should. But right now, when you look at the Pelicans are set up to win. They have a bunch of good young players. Brandon Ingram is a great young player. They traded him for Anthony Davis. And you look at what Anthony Davis has done for the Lakers and what Brandon Ingram has grown into, and he's still very young. He's 25, 26 years old. He is as good as Anthony Davis is right now. He is. He has a better shot around the perimeter. He can go inside. He's a pretty good free throw shooter. And I expected that with Brandon Ingram. That's why I kept saying the Lakers should have never traded him. If you look at all the players the Lakers traded away, all those youngsters, Magic Johnson, and those executives drafted, could you imagine what this team would be with LeBron James and those players were not traded for Anthony Davis? They would be a championship competitive team every single year. If you look at what the Knicks have, Julius Randle was drafted by the Lakers. Julius Randle was an all-NBA player this year, second team all-NBA. Brandon Ingram averaged, 25 points a game? as a big man, about 8 rebounds a game and 4 assists a game. You get that from Brandon Ingram as your second option, and you have Julius Randle as your third option. D'Angelo Russell, which you traded away and you brought him back. If you had him, he's averaging 14, 15 points, and I don't even care. You have Ball there. Lonzo Ball, he wasn't healthy this year, but Lonzo Ball, if you have him as your point guard, look at your starting lineup with LeBron James.
Look at the impact that Josh Hart had with the Knicks this year. He was in that trade too.
That's right. Just think about it. Think about where the Lakers would be if they never traded for Anthony Davis. Now, Anthony Davis did help them win a championship, which everybody goes back and they say, hey, you know what? That was the year of COVID and they played in the bubble. And some people say that if that never happened, maybe the Lakers don't win the championship. But they did. They won it with Anthony Davis. So everything that they did was worth everything to them because they won a championship. But now LeBron James don't want to be there because he's not winning. And that team is getting old. They don't have the depth that they thought they were going to have as they move forward as an organization. Now you go back to the Pelicans and you look at the Pelicans organization right now. They're ready to win right now. They have CJ McCollum. They traded for him. They re-signed him. They have Brandon Ingram. This team is built to win now. Zion Williamson, if he could stay healthy, could be the impact player that they've needed for the last couple of years.
And again, we also saw Zion Williamson once he got hurt the first time. The Pelicans had their worst stretch of the season. So that's what makes this dilemma really tough for them because the team value that he contributed was very big for the Pelicans where they were. We talk about a team like the Grizzlies 2 years ago when Ja Morant got hurt. The team still played well without him. We didn't see that with the Pelicans. They were the 2 seed in the Western Conference before he got hurt. And then when they came back, I think they were a play-in team and they barely made the playoffs this year. So that's the dilemma. But at the same time, for somebody making that kind of money, I know some of it was only partially guaranteed because he got hurt. That might be a worthy thing to try to trade for a win now type player because Zion's upside is through the roof. He was the best prospect besides Wembanyama this year since LeBron.
When he did play,
between,
he averaged 26 points. He averaged almost 10 rebounds. He's a pretty good passer for a guy his size. Mm-hmm. He averaged almost 4 to 5 assists a game. And you look at their team, they have Valanciunas, they have CJ McCollum, they have Trey Murphy. This team has depth. They have depth on the bench. Larry Nance Jr. on their bench. This is a good team. It's very well built. The problem with this team has been Zion Williamson, not because he's not great, because he's fantastic. Guy can't stay healthy, and you don't want to be there. And if he doesn't want to be there, then you give him and you oblige to him what he wants. Trade him. If you think that you can get a player from the G League that's going to be a top 5 pick. Now, I do not see any of these teams in the top 5 and drafting in the top 5 that are willing to give away their pick for Zion Williamson. And the only reason why is Zion Williamson is injury prone, and he has to prove that he can play 65 of the 82 games in a season and be ready for the playoffs. If he can't do that, why would anybody give up a top 5 lottery pick?
Not only that, you're getting that money too, which you're taking on a max contract for a guy that has played less than 30 games in 3 of his 4 seasons in the NBA. He missed the whole season in 2021 as well. So he's essentially played 3 years in the league. So no team that's in that top 5 that is evidently rebuilding, the Pistons, the Rockets, etc., are going to take that kind of thing on. I think it's more likely to do for a more of a win now type star where maybe that team is a bubble team, maybe Chicago with a Zach LaVine or somebody like that the Pelicans might have more interest and Zion has leeway because if that team is going into fill rebuild mode, we're talking about the Wizards with Bradley Beal too, maybe that's an option for them. Maybe Zion is a piece to rebuild for the Wizards. I think that is more likely because the Pelicans do need leadership. They have good young players. McCollum is really their only veteran guy.
There is no way the Pelicans are trading Zion Williamson for Bradley Beal. I cannot see that. And why would they bring in Bradley Beal? He's a guy that doesn't play defense. At least Zion Williamson, when he is on the court, he plays defense. He's a pretty good defender.
Yes.
Bradley Beal is a horrible defender. And to bring him in, it makes a lot of sense if, let's say, the Boston Celtics decided to part ways with Jaylen Brown. They don't want to give him a supermax contract. He is going to be asking for $295 million at the end of next season. That's when he has to he will be a restricted free agent, and he could decide where is it unrestricted or restricted? It would be restricted, right?
Yeah, it would be restricted for the time being. Yes.
So he would be able to go wherever he wants. And I think when you look at the Boston Bruins, I keep saying Boston Bruins, when you look at the Boston Celtics in the position that they're in right now, they want to win, and they're built to win now with Jason Tatum and the players that they have on this roster. So if you look at where they're positioned, Bradley Beal makes a lot of sense for the Boston Bruins, the Boston Celtics. So I always, you know what it is? I'm thinking about the Boston Bruins because one of my friends was telling me he plays for the Boston Bruins AHL team.
Oh.
And he reached out to me. I haven't spoken to him in a while. And he told me he is going to be called up sometime next year.
Oh, nice.
So he will be playing on the NHL team. So he's been very excited. I haven't spoken to him in almost 6 years.
Wow.
And he reached out to me today, and we were on the phone, and we were talking about the Boston Bruins. So I don't follow the Boston Bruins as much as I should, but he's very, very excited. So I'm very excited for him. So to get back to the Zion Williamson story, I expect teams like the Knicks to make a run at him. I could see Miami making a run at him. I could see Sacramento making a run at him. Phoenix could, if they're willing to trade away Devin Booker or of that one of those players of magnitude. How about the Nets? You know, the Nets have a ton of draft picks from the fact that they traded Kevin Durant and obviously Kyrie Irving. I think they got 8 or 9 first-round draft picks out of those
and one
trades.
pick swap too with the Suns too.
Yeah, so they have the opportunity. They could trade some of those picks and bring in a Zion Williamson. They bring in Zion and Damian Lillard, like everybody keeps talking about, because that's where he wants to go. And they have who else? Who they have on their team?
They got Cam Johnson. They got Nick Claxton. They got some good.
I'm not talking about Cam Johnson. I'm talking about the kid from Villanova.
Yeah, Mikal Bridges.
Mikal Bridges. If they don't have to trade him and they just give away picks for a guy like Zion Williamson, I could see that would be a great big three. Yeah. Zion Williamson, Mikal Bridges, and Damian Lillard. Could you imagine those three on a roster? And that is so much better than Kevin Durant and that clown show that they have up there. And they could trade probably Ben Simmons in that trade because Ben Simmons would have to go because the contracts have to match. And you would send Ben Simmons over there to the Pelicans. And that gives the Pelicans a defender that they really could use, and maybe they could add another team and they can get more picks from that too.
Maybe if Damian Lillard is going to be traded, maybe you add Portland in the deal, maybe you split the money somehow. I think it could work for everybody.
It's hard to bring in a third team in the NBA. It always is a lot that you have to do. But again, and Snug keeps saying the Knicks, and it's dumb. The Knicks have money. Okay, Snug? The Knicks have money for a max player, and the Knicks have pieces. So you could say whatever you want because you're a Boston guy and a Sacramento King fan. But the facts are he wants to go to a big market. That's where he wants to go. And if you're talking about the Brooklyn Nets, he would rather go to the Knicks because his shoe deals and everything in Madison Square Garden, the way he plays and where he wants to play in the world's most greatest arena, that would make a lot of sense on why he would want to play in a big market, not Sacramento. Who goes to a Sacramento Kings game for the first time and I don't even remember.
Since 2007.
Since 2007, they actually sold out a significant amount of games this year. They're not a good organization. They really aren't. They haven't been good for years. They finally put it together. They made some good trades, and De'Aaron Fox has turned into a great player. He really has. And everybody thought he was going to be great coming from Kentucky. I thought he was an all-around good guard. But obviously, the team couldn't stay healthy throughout in the first round, and they got bounced out pretty quick. Where I thought they were going to go deeper into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's off 7-game series, and you wonder if that could have been a lot different if De'Aaron Fox was healthy, because he still played great in that Game 5.
He was not healthy,
but he definitely wasn't healthy the later on in that series. It just made it very hard. But yeah, Sacramento is going to be tough as it is, just being a smaller market to bring in that too, because Zion is also taking on that kind of money too. And yeah, they have the money space to be able to do that right now because De'Aaron Fox is their only really big contract right now. But is he going to want to stay there for that kind of thing? You're at trouble in New Orleans, where New Orleans is it's not a super small market, it's not a super big market, but it's still a good sports market. And if he doesn't want to stay there, that's going to be hard.
I don't believe, and obviously Snug is posting up that he thinks the Knicks and the Kings are both garbage organizations. I don't think they're both garbage organizations anymore.
No.
I think they're run pretty well. Sacramento is run. They brought in some good executives. Their coach is a very well respectable coach in the NBA. And now you look at the Knicks, they actually have it right. They have good young pieces, and they're looking at possibly being a playoff team every single year in the Eastern Conference. And that's all you expect from a New York Knicks team that barely makes the playoffs and barely has made the playoffs in the last 25 years.
So now it makes a lot of sense from a pure basketball standpoint. It just doesn't make a lot of sense from a contract standpoint, especially in a unique circumstance like Zion, a player that's so popular too. He's going to want to be able to brand himself more and make himself that bigger icon that we know he could be in the game.
He's not staying with the Pelicans. His family does not like New Orleans. They don't like it. They don't like it. I've heard stories coming from his mother that she wants him to move either back to Florida, that's where he's from. Miami would be a perfect fit for him, or he wants to go to LA, one of the LA teams, or the Knicks. That's where he wanted so badly that the Knicks to draft him at number 1. He wanted the Knicks to win the lottery, and the Knicks fell out of it. They got the 3 pick, and they got his buddy, RJ Barrett. Could you imagine him going to the Knicks? His best friend is RJ Barrett. Him going to play with RJ Barrett in New York. Now, I don't know if they're going to be a championship competitive team because we don't know if Zion's going to stay healthy. Right. But if you put him, and I don't think you would have to trade Julius Randle. I really don't. Because I don't think that's what they're going to want. You look at some of the other players, they might want Grimes, Quigley, Obi Toppin. They're going to want young players, and they're going to want draft stock. That's what they're going to want. They're not going, and they have to match the contract. So right. Fournier would have to go, and maybe another guy would have to go where they can match the contracts.
Or again, getting another team involved too, which is going to be very hard in these types of circumstances when you just can't trust Zion to stay healthy.
Again, this story is true. I believe it to be true. I wouldn't be surprised in the next week and a half, Zion Williamson gets traded to another team in another organization. The guy can't stay healthy. They're paying him a lot of money. He just got a $195 million contract, as we were saying in the beginning of the monologue. So the thoughts on where he could go, just expect a big market. That's where he wants to go. And he wants to sell, and he wants to get endorsed by many different organizations. And if he goes to a big marketplace like LA, how about the Houston Rockets? It's a big market, but I don't know if that's where he wants to go.
I don't think they would trade the second pick, but if they have other first-round picks, I would consider it.
I could see that. I could see Zion Williamson going to Houston, but again, I don't believe he wants to go to Houston. I think there's only 3 teams he would go to. The Lakers, the Knicks, and Miami. Mm-hmm. That's where I think he would go. All 3 of those teams, they're big marketplaces. Miami makes a lot of sense. Miami is trying to get Bradley Beal. You match him up to Jimmy Butler. He's your young player now. You could build your team. And now you would have to trade possibly, who could they trade? Tyler Hero, I would say, the Miami Heat. That would make sense.
Yeah, it would have to be one of their other young
Bam
guards.
Adebayo.
Yeah, and Bam Adebayo.
I would say to get this done, because Bam's making 195, and obviously Zion Williamson is making 195. That would match off, and you would give a significant amount of draft picks. Maybe you add another player, maybe a Gabe Vincent or a Caleb Martin.
Yeah,
and
Gabe Vincent I think is one that makes a lot of sense.
And a bunch of picks, and you could probably get Zion Williamson. But then you got to hope that Zion Williamson stays healthy, because if he isn't, you just lost your second best player in Bam Adebayo.
But again, it's a risk that Miami's been taking for a while. They have a lot of injury-prone players on that team, including Adebayo. He was healthy the last 2 years, but had some issues with injury earlier in his career, too. And we all know about the rest of those older point guards and guards they have on that team.
When we come back, we will be talking to longtime offensive line coach Jim McNally. If you don't know who he is, he coached in the NFL from 1980 to 2007 with the Bengals, Panthers, Giants, and Bills, and also was a consultant with the New York Jets. When we come back, we will have him for the first time on the Sports Loudmouths here, only on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Hi, I'd like to report a bear hug.
Uh-huh, okay.
Well, we were building a bonfire, and I saw some, like, dry brush and leaves around, so, I said to move the bonfire somewhere else, and out of nowhere, Smokey Bear shows up and hugs me.
So you noticed some wildfire hazards and moved your bonfire to a safer location.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Smokey, all right. He likes it when people help prevent wildfires. It hits him close to home. Not everybody gets the hug, my friend. So that's pretty special to get a hug from Smokey Bear.
So it was him. Hey, guys, I told you it was Smokey.
Okay, well, congratulations, my friend. And thanks for calling. There are many ways to prevent a wildfire. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouths.
631-672-3108 is the number. May rest in peace, DMX. Remember, you can go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. As you know, you're listening to the Sports Loudmouths. You can listen to all the shows throughout the week by following the list of when the shows are playing on the menu key. Go to the website. They're all live. You can tune in. You can call the shows, including this show, every single week. And if you miss any of the shows, any of the interviews, go to Apple Podcast. All the shows are put up there by dates. Whatever you've missed, 1.6 million downloads right now on our Apple Podcast, moving to 1.7. Thank you to all the fans that are tuning in and listening to the shows that they've missed. We have great interviews, as we have one coming right up with Jim McNally. Listen to all the shows. I'm telling you, we have a great network. We have 4 or 5 really, really good shows, including our show. And we put a lot of time and energy into the shows to make everybody or help everybody get through their day, or even just sit out, if they're not watching. This is not a great sports time for sports. What's going on right now? Baseball. There's nothing. There's no football. There's no nothing. The OTAs are about to begin, so there's nothing. So if you want to tune in and be entertained, listen to the Sports Loudmouths, listen to Game On, listen to all the shows throughout our network. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time on the Sports Loudmouths, he looks really happy to come on our show. He definitely does. We are now talking to longtime offensive line coach Jim McNally. Jim, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing, guys? How are you? Yeah, I never heard of your show until tonight, but I listened to a good part of it, and it sounds interesting. I don't know shit about basketball, but I learned. So, interesting. Yeah, I spent 5 years in New York. Enjoyed it. My wife's from Queens, and yeah, I'm real familiar with you guys and the sports teams in the area.
Well, I will say this. I'm happy that you've never heard of us, because now you become a fan of us.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
I mean, I've been on so many podcasts recently. There's a guy named Troy Taylor out of Virginia. He's just a high school coach. He brings anybody on, managers, the trainers. He'll talk to anybody. And he's the one that got me on Twitter 3 months ago. And now I got almost 15,000 followers. And I put on video clips every day of football, techniques and real coaching stuff. So I've been a little bit more into the media, podcast, the Twitter, blah, 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 than I've ever been in my life. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we're actually a live radio show on 103.9 FM here in Long Island. We have the #1 show. We're the only live sports radio show here in Long Island that airs throughout every single week. And we're happy to be really the voices of Long Island sports radio. And we're growing, and we're talking to many different organizations and possibly picking us up as a show. So we're a growing show. I've been doing radio for over 10 years, and I've worked with some of the biggest athletes in the country. And I've also worked with some of the best analysts, some of my mentors, and Ian Eagle. I'm sure you know Ian.
Yes, I'll tell you one thing, and interrupting you, in Buffalo, where I was born and raised, and he became a New York City icon in sports, Bill Mazer. So he's an old timer, as deceased now, I believe.
Yes.
But he was prominent in New York sports radio, and he's from Buffalo, and he used to have a sports radio show. So when he went to New York, I followed him, and etc. So yeah, I know. My son lives in he lives on Long Island. He lives right in that same little city that not little city, nothing's little in New York, but he lives right in Floral Park, right next to Belmont Park.
Oh, I know where Floral Park is. Yeah.
Yeah, and he takes the train in every day. He works for the New York Times, and anyway, so I got a son that lives in Long Island, and when I go to visit him, I have to leave at 5 o'clock in the morning to get over that Tappan Zee Bridge, or whatever bridge I'm on.
It is horrible. I mean, especially 347 where I live is the worst highway in New York. It's horrible. It's bumper to bumper traffic. People and I'm no offense, and I love old people, but all the retired people that are going to the doctors, there's a million doctors' offices. You have Stony Brook University, you have Mather Hospital. Everybody is going to the doctor. So the traffic and the road work over here is horrendous. In New York, Florham Park, that's borderline Queens. It's Nassau County. It's right on the borderline of Queens and right over there. And he works for the New York Times. I've been in the New York Times. I've interviewed some of those New York Times writers, and some of them are fantastic. And I'm maybe we'll get your son on. We'll talk a little sports with him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, we lived in when I coached for the Giants, we lived in Cedar Grove. So I got on Route 3, which, is a North Jersey or mid Jersey area. And it would take me only about 15 minutes to get to Giant Stadium. And I left early in the morning. So I knew that Route 3. And when we go into the city, we would go right down to the river and then take the ferry across. And that's how we'd go into the city, park our car on that big old lot on the Jersey side, and go into New York. Yeah,
it is horrible. I hate driving from New York City to Jersey, and there's like only two and a half ways. I say 2.5 because the other half you don't want to go the other half because there's too many highways. It swirls and
oh my God, yeah.
It's horrible. But I go to a lot of games, and I do work some of the press games for the Jets and the Giants. So, but let's get into it. And the offensive line, you're an offensive line coach. You've been an offensive line coach since 1980 from the Cincinnati Bengals the way.
Really, it's 1965 if you count college.
Okay.
But, I mean, I know we're talking pro football, but
pro football, yes.
Yeah, but I'm in that. I coached at Marshall. I'm in that movie, We Are Marshall.
Oh, were you?
Which is a very famous movie.
Right.
So Matthew McConaughey and all this, that, and the other. But I coached at Marshall, University of Buffalo, where I played. Buddy Ryan was my coach. So that was kind of an interesting story. That my defensive coordinator when I played in college was the Buddy Ryan. But I coached 15 years in college before the pro deal.
It's I wouldn't say it's so funny, but I've watched that movie, We Are Marshall, many, many times. And that story was just a sad story. What happened to the whole football team, a plane accident, and then rebuilding with a bunch of, soccer players. You guys practically put together a bunch of players that play different sports and
we had
never play football.
We had a basketball guy. The whole story is about a guy named Red Dawson. And he was a guy that drove his car. They were scouting before they played the game in East Carolina. Bottom line is he flew on the airplane, and when they returned, he gave his seat on the airplane to an older coach, and Red drove back to Huntington. And so he was a coach. And then when I went there in the staff, there was 3 coaches that were not killed because they had driven cars. And the whole story, the Marshall story, is about this guy, Red Dawson, who ended up coaching with us after the crash. And after 2 years, he couldn't take it anymore, the heartbreak and this, that, and the other. So it's an interesting story. Yes, I was there.
It's a crazy story, and only I think 3 players were not on that plane. That they were hurt, they were injured, and it's just watching and understanding that story and seeing what Marshall did after that and rebuilding that school and that football program was fantastic. And then obviously you bring in Chad Pennington and Randy Moss, and that changed everything for that school and the growth of where that school was. They were one of the better, better football teams in the country at the time before the accident, and then had to rebuild for a couple of years and then got back to where they were and where you expected that team to be in the early 90s. So
yeah. Oh, anyway, on to whatever
yes
you want.
So the offensive line, Jim, is to me the most important positions on protecting the quarterback. It's building through the trenches. We've talked to so many football coaches, and the way to build championships is you need a strong offensive line and a strong defensive line. Being obviously an offensive line coach, what do you look for in players when you're trying to build your offensive line?
Well, bottom line, it's all in the draft or free agency and this, that, and the other. So if you're building your team in the draft, and you get the 27th pick in the first round, you're not gonna have as good a play. Like my second year, my first year at the Bengals, we took Anthony Munoz, greatest player to ever play his position.
No question.
Well, the Bengals the previous year won, 6, 7, or they won 2 or 3 games because I wasn't there then. So when I was a rookie coach, our first pick, we had the 3rd pick in the country. I think the first pick was the running back from the Detroit Lions, and then there was Johnny Lamb Jones with the Jets, I think, and then it was Munoz. So, the higher you pick, or the more money you pay for a free agent, the chances are getting better players. The problem you got is if you've had some bad picks or some of your players haven't come through for you, then you got to draft and pay money for the skilled athletes, the quarterbacks, the receivers, the Joe Burrows, this, that, and the other, and you may never catch up. So until you catch up, whether draft-wise or free agency-wise, it's a problem in the NFL because it's one of the most important positions, but all of the NFL teams need those skilled athletes, and that's what they're going after generally first.
So in terms of the technique of the offensive line, when you started coaching in the 80s, stylistically and to now, how much is it different?
Well, you could use your hands when I first started coaching, where you couldn't previous. But the game has become more technical. The defenses are more complicated. People play with 4 and 5 wide receivers. It's become a passing game. They always threw the football in pro football. We know that. But the point I'm saying is it's turned into like college football. People run the zone read. They spread out 4 wide receivers. It's become, they've made the rules for the offense. So that part of it's changed, where you got to throw the football and you got to be able to pass protect and you got to be able to defend the good passing quarterbacks with the good receivers. So that's why it's more of a passing league than I think it's ever been with this Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, all the good quarterbacks that have come out recently.
As everyone knows, we are talking to longtime offensive line coach Jim McNally. He coached in the NFL in the 1980s all the way to 2007 with the Bengals, the Panthers, the Giants, and the Bills. Also worked with the Jets as a consultant. This guy's had a fantastic career. He also was a coach with the Marshall team when they were rebuilding after that tragic plane accident and rebuilt. He was a part of the rebuild for that team. Jim, Boomer Esiason was drafted in 1984.
Yep, I was there.
And he's a Long Island native. He's from East Islip, a guy that is practically a god here on Long Island. He really is. And when you look at the offensive line that you built while you were there with Cincinnati Bengals, your main concern was protecting Boomer, and Boomer helped you guys, eventually took you guys to the Super Bowl. You lost against the San Francisco 49ers. Tell us about Boomer Esiason. What you knew about Boomer Esiason when he came through the draft.
I will tell you about Boomer, but with the line he had, it probably is the best offensive line that the Bengals have had, even though it was 30 years ago. Munoz was the left tackle, and he was as big as, he could play today. We had a left guard named Bruce Reimers, who was 6'7", 310 pounds from Iowa State. We had a center named Kozerski from Holy Cross. Our right guard was another Mexican, Max Montoya. And our right tackle, now don't forget, Boomer was left-handed. So our right tackle was as valuable to us as Munoz, because when Boomer would set up the pass, he would turn to his left. So our right tackle was a guy named Joe Walter, 6'7", 320 pounds from Texas Tech. So for about 8 or 9 years, I had the same offensive line. And then we went to the Super Bowl twice, actually, and lost both to the 49ers. But my point is that Boomer had a good offensive line in his heyday at the Bengals. And when Boomer first came in, he was backing up Kenny Anderson for a year or so. And then Kenny stayed on the team, and then Boomer became the starter. And all I can say is he was a great leader. A tough guy, could take hits, and smart. Sam Weiss, who's deceased now, we had this no huddle offense, and Boomer was a master at it. And it wasn't like the average no huddle. I mean, we're the only one, I think, maybe in the history that ran a no huddle offense. Now visualize this. How many seconds do you have to run a play? 35, 40 seconds?
Yep.
We'd go to the line of scrimmage with that much time left. And Boomer would be saying, blue 47, 57, Paul. Paul Brown was the owner, so we had a play named after the boss. Blue 57, blue 22, Paul. And the defensive line would be in their stance for that full period, okay, while Boomer, made all kinds of dummy calls, farts calls, and by the time the ball was snapped, the defensive line was tired. So he knew how to run the no huddle offense that was the long huddle offense. It wasn't the fast huddle offense. And then we'd run a fast pace offense, and then blah, blah, blah. So he was smart. He was tough. He was a decent passer. And he had some good receivers, and we had a good team. It was just we could not get past Joe Montana, who probably is one of the best quarterbacks to ever play, even though he's not necessarily known as a GOAT.
That was the famous game, and I heard the story when Joe Montana went into the huddle and he told all the players, "Hey, look, it's John Candy," and he took everything off of them, took all the pressure off them when they were, I think they were on the 10-yard line or the 7-yard line.
Absolutely.
And he took all the pressure off the team, and then they ran the play and they scored and they won the game. But that story by itself, I remember it because I was young when that was going on. I was a kid. But I'll never forget the story when John Candy was standing on the sidelines and says, hey boys, that's John Candy, and it took all the pressure. I remember when I've seen the different stories, all the players that were in the huddle said he completely took the pressure off of them and put it right to.
Yeah, and he threw a touchdown pass to John Taylor, I believe. We had a guy, Stanford Jennings, his name, returned to kickoff for a touchdown. And it wasn't a high-scoring game, probably a boring game to watch offensively until Montana. And the interesting thing, I was with the team in 1981. We went to the Super Bowl, and you guys might not even remember it. We played in Detroit.
No, I remember.
So Kenny Anderson was the quarterback, and Montana was the quarterback again for the 49ers the first time, and it was a nip and tuck game, and then he took them down the field and they won the game. So again, absolutely, it went from talking about Boomer to talking about Montana, because that was the quarterback we played twice in the Super Bowls. But Boomer was a great leader, and I'm really impressed how he's become a total sports fan. I mean, I never knew that he knew so much about other sports until, however he got his job on the radio or TV
WFAN,
in New York. I mean, he's grown into following all the teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I just knew him as a quarterback for our team that went to Maryland and was probably a pretty good student. So however he's developed into a sports analyst, he's terrific.
So moving on to your career with the Giants, you had a Super Bowl team that lost against the Ravens that got blown out badly, but you coached a guy in Lamas Brown who could be a future Hall of Famer. Chris Snee was a very good guard for those Super Bowl teams
Fantastic
later on.
guard.
So
Yeah.
what was your experience like coaching with the Giants?
Well, the thing about us, we were good, except in that game, because the Giants have won a lot of Super Bowls.
Mhm.
But, one of my best lines ever, my 5 years at the Giants, were kind of no-name guys. And we were good, and we were damn good. And we went to the playoffs, and we played the 49ers, I think, in our first playoff game, and it might have been 2002, maybe. We had a snapper was hurt, and then we brought in an experienced snapper who had been retired, and he had a missed snap on a field goal, which I believe we would have kept, and we'd have probably won the game, and whether we'd have gone to the next playoff game or not. But I had linemen there that you guys might not even hear, and they were good. Luke Pettigrew was the left tackle.
He's a
Okay.
Giant fan, so he knows who he is.
Yeah, absolutely. And at left guard, we had a guy named Richie Seubert, who ended up playing in the Super Bowls. Center, we had a free agent named Chris Bober. The right guard was a guy named Jason Whittle. He was a free agent. The right tackle was Mike Rosenthal. But we ran a whole bunch of games to get in the playoffs, and we had Tiki Barber, and we had a good defense. But when we played Baltimore, who had I'm not so sure that Baltimore Ravens have not been the greatest defense, even though they say, what was it, the
Chicago Bears,
the
85.
Chicago
Or
Bears,
Seattle.
Yeah, these guys were unbelievable. In the middle, Saragusa, Sam Adams, Ray Lewis. They had a defensive end from Wake Forest.
Yep.
I think his name was McCray or something. He was like shot out of a gun. They had a cover corner that, you couldn't get away from. We could have gone to the Super Bowl when we played it in Tampa against Baltimore. We could have gone the day of the game. We didn't.
Don't forget Ed Reed.
Yeah, Ed Reed, absolutely. But we didn't have to go a week early because they kicked our ass. But yeah, true story. I was at the Giants. We went to the Super Bowl, but I was not with those great teams that Parcells had or Coughlin had. So again, we had a good quarterback, Kerry Collins.
Define good.
Yeah, I think when came in, Manning,
Eli Manning, yes. Kurt Warner.
Previous when they had, Phil Simms, that, they may have just had a little bit better under center deal then.
We are talking to longtime offensive line coach Jim McNally. Over there with the Giants, you worked for Jim Fossil, and may he rest in peace. Jim,
Yes.
Jim I met Jim Fossil years ago, and I've never met such a kind soul. He was so nice.
Great guy.
Yes. His son is a coach in the NFL as well.
Yep.
What was Jim Fossil like as a head coach?
He was a lot of fun. He was a fun guy. I don't mean we didn't work, but what I'm saying is somebody gave him when you cross that Hudson River from Jersey, there's a boat dock that's right there. Well, someone gave him a boat, or he didn't buy it. Somebody that was a sponsor or something, and he had a big damn cabin cruiser, and he used to take us all around. He'd take us to the tip of Manhattan, and we'd go down the Hudson, and he'd take us we'd go to Atlantic City. This was only like on vacation or, an occasional weekend, but he was a fun guy. He was he was a good coach. I think Phil Simms will tell you that he taught him a lot about quarterback play, because I think Faso was an assistant, whether it was under Parcells or somebody else, that he actually mentored Phil Simms. But he was a good guy. We had a good group, and we were good.
So Munoz obviously was the best offensive lineman you coached, but is there anyone that really stood out when it came to like your personality, great guy to be around off the field?
Well, I'm trying to think. I've coached so many players. Lomas Brown was a fun guy. I mean, and he was with us at the Giants when we went to the Super Bowl. Glenn Parker, the guy that played right next to him, was a fun guy off the field. Lomas played 19 years, I think, if you Wikipedia him. And Glenn Parker played a lot of years with the Chiefs and also with the Buffalo Bills. But those were two guys who were a lot of fun. When I was with the Jets, I was only a consultant, so I didn't really, I didn't know the players as well. I know this, that when I was with the Jets, they had one hell of a right guard. Oh my God, he was from Illinois, Brandon Moore.
Yep.
No one's ever heard of him.
Oh, we know who he was. Butt Fumble. We know him very well.
Yeah, that's right. The Butt Fumble. But I'll tell you what,
yes.
he could block.
Mm-hmm.
He could block. And then Mangold was there. And then, they had Faneca, and DeBrickashaw was a tremendous pass blocker, decent run blocker. And so, I mean, I worked with Callahan, who's probably the best line coach now in the NFL. But I think the reason I got connected with the Jets was that Rex Ryan was the head coach, and Buddy Ryan was my coach in college. So there was kind of a connection there. But I would say Lomas Brown and Glenn Parker with the Giants were fun guys off the field, trying to keep it locally oriented there with you guys.
We are talking to longtime offensive line coach Jim McNally. Jim, you talk a lot about obviously Buddy Ryan, and he's mostly known for those times with the Bears in 1985, 86, that Super Bowl. That was arguably one of the greatest defenses of all time. And a lot of people believe that if Buddy Ryan stayed with the Bears, they probably would have won 3 or 4 Super Bowls. That's how good they were. What was Buddy Ryan like as a coach? What is he like as a confidant? What was he like off the field as a friend?
Well, Buddy Ryan was from Oklahoma originally. He went to Oklahoma State, and he had that Southern drawl, even though he wasn't from the South. He was from wherever the hell you call it, the Southwest. But he had all kinds of sayings. You can't ride him in the chute. I don't know what the hell that meant. You can't ride that horse if you're still in the chute, right? Or he'd call you a worm, or he pretended like he didn't know your last name, but he really did know, particularly if you were an offensive player. But he was a tough guy. Now, when I was at Buffalo, which was not Penn State or not Boston College or Pitt, but we were just a little bit below that. And he made our defense tough. I mean, we were in the ECAC or ECAC Division II type thing. And we had some good players. In fact, our best player was Jerry Philbin, who played with the Jets.
Yes, I know Jerry.
He coached Philbin. And but anyway, he was a hard-nosed guy, but you either loved him or hated him. And if you worked hard, if you busted your ass, you know what I mean? If you got your nose bloody, I mean, like me, even though I'm not a big guy, if you look at my nose sideways, I was not born that way. You know what I mean? It was Buddy Ryan's drills, I mean, we had those Riddell helmets.
That's
and
right.
we talked about sticking them. That was you stuck your head in, whether it was legal or not. And we had a drill called Blood Alley. And here was the drill. A freshman running back would run the ball, and then a defensive player would be chopping his feet and making a tackle on him. And then when the first tackler would grab him or tackle him, here came another guy, like another guy trying to get on the pile, just trying to crush that freshman running back. So we lost more freshman running backs, and the freshman coach at that time was so pissed off at Buddy Ryan that they almost had a fight. But Yeah, we had a drill. I was what they call a 2 technique, which means you played over the guard. And there was me and another guy, and between us there was nobody. So if they ran up the middle and they trapped you or something, you got hell. But anyway, we used to have a drill where the entire offensive line would block the 2 of us. Now they couldn't all block us at once, but I mean it would be a drill where he had all these exotic drills for the technique you played on defense. Right. But yeah, he was a great coach. There's no question.
Where's your nickname? Where does your nickname come from? They
Mouse.
call you the
My
Mouse.
nickname is Mouse. It's
Yes.
not because I have the big ears. Okay? but when I was a kid, maybe 12 years old, down at the local high school where I went, I was playing football. I think it was just touch football. And I was kind of quick. And I was with older guys. And they said, look at the little mouse running around. Now, don't forget, I'm 12 years old now. My wife, to this date, calls me Mouse. Whatever city I'd go to a coach, they didn't know my nickname is Mouse until they heard my wife or someone else that knew me. Hey, Mouse. And then I became Mouse forever. So, yeah, I'm still Mouse. We have a big party in Buffalo every summer. We call it the Mouse Pack. So, yes, it stuck with me.
So maybe Bills fans should put a bunch of mice on the table and try to slam themselves through. That'll be the next challenge.
You know what I'm going to do for you? I'm going to send you a nice basket of cheese.
Yeah, well, send me a trap too. You know, I'm the only Bengal fan in Buffalo. And Buffalo's my home. That's kind of a funny thing. You know, I was born and raised in Buffalo. I went to high school in the Buffalo area. I went to university at Buffalo. I was there 10 years as a player, student, coach. And then I left, we dropped football, and I went to Marshall, Boston College, Wake Forest, the Bengals, blah, blah, blah. I was gone 35 years, but I spent most of my career with the Bengals. And then my last 10 years were with the Bengals. So born and raised a Buffalo Bills fan, but then coming home and working on my iPad for the Bengals, no one could understand how I wasn't a Bills fan. So
you got the last laugh this year in that blowout.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I was totally surprised because we played the game with 3 or 4 second stringers who may have been better than the first stringers, to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, the Bills came up with a lot of excuses why they lost that game. But
it's funny that you bring. It's funny. I'm sorry to cut you off. You're funny.
No,
you're bringing up. You're bringing up the Buffalo Bills because our next guest, Tim Alcorn, who's the broadcaster, play-by-play guy for the Cavaliers, he's a die-hard Buffalo Bills fan.
Yeah,
die-hard Buffalo Bills fan. So he was putting his thumbs up when he heard you said you're from Buffalo and you're
yeah. I surprised him. Yes, the Buffalo Bills fans are probably, maybe other than the old Oakland Raiders fans, the craziest. I mean, you get beer bottles thrown at you, you get shit thrown at you, you get cussed out. Buffalo is truly, we got the Sabres, we got the Bills, we got a few minor league teams, but the fans, when the Bills lose, there's more wife beatings, there's more shootings, there's more store robberies. You walk into a convenience store, everybody's hanging their head. And it truly, now you take a big city like New York, one of the teams lose, their fans are a little upset, but the whole city of New York is not upset. Right. In Buffalo, when the Bills lose or the Sabres lose, the entire community is in the tank.
See, the difference with the Bills fans and the Raiders fans, the Raiders fans could still do those things after they win.
Yeah. You're right, man. When I used to play against the Raiders and we'd get off the bus and we'd see all those painted faces, I thought they were all masks. You know what I mean? And but their cheerleaders were pretty nice too.
Jim McNally. Hopefully your wife's not listening to this.
Oh, she don't give a shit. Yeah.
Well, Jim, we really appreciate you joining us. You're fantastic. You really are. We definitely got to get John again. You're a funny guy, and you've had a great career as an offensive line coach. And hopefully you're 79 years old. You have a good 20 years left.
I'll be 80, and
congratulations.
I remember more than I ever had. I don't know. I think it was because the consulting period was 10 to 12 years, and I had time to really watch a lot of films, see some mistakes. I didn't have to go through the daily grind of arguing with coaches or being in players meetings and then, getting on an airplane and then going scouting and this. I mean, I could just study football over and over. So I kind of went the other way. Normally when you get old, you forget everything. Now that I'm getting old, I remember everything. So pretty interesting.
Well, you're an interesting guy, and you've had a great career, and keep up the good work, man. We'll talk to you soon. I would love to get you on the show.
Thanks for having me. I fucking love everybody in New York. And now, is this live?
This is live, bud. This is live.
I mean, I'm cussing. Am I X-rated?
That's okay. It's okay. It's okay. You're allowed to. As long as you keep it to a bare minimum, we're fine.
Let me ask you this: how many fans do we have listen?
Usually an average between 5,000 and 10,000.
Oh my God!
A show, yes. So yes.
Well,
we're on all different platforms. So we're on Spotify. We're all over. We're on like 21 or 20.
Oh, you got a great program.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come back anytime you want. Anytime you're really hurting for somebody and you need some laughs, dial me in.
I first of all, I just want to let you know we interview a lot of different people, and we don't interview trainers like other people do.
Yeah.
We try to interview some big names and guys that have been in the games and analysts. We've talked to Hall of Famers. We've talked to players that are in the league right now. I love how sincere and straightforward a lot of you guys are. I don't like guys trying to beat around the bush and trying to find an answer to settle not throwing anybody under the bus. I like people that are honest. And if we're asking you
absolutely
to be honest with us and tell us the truth.
You guys are good too. You guys got a lot of pizzazz.
Thank you.
Do you have a real job other than this, or is this full time?
No, it's not yet, but we're working. There's a couple of big organizations talking to us. So we're very close. We're right on the cusp.
Good luck to you. And I love the New York City twang too. You know what I mean? You guys got a little bit of that New York City. All right, already.
Well, you know what it is that we like to laugh. I love to laugh. And a lot of people, a lot of the Boston fans that listen to us, we have a lot of Boston fans that listen to us. They can't stand us. Okay.
I know. They can't talk right either.
They can't stand us, Jim. They cannot stand us.
Well, they don't talk properly. I was there 3 years, so I know they have trouble with the language.
Wata. Wata. What the hell's a wata? I mean, Boston.
Okay, guys.
Boston.
Nice to see you.
Jim, thank you, man. Jim
Thank
McNally, offensive line coach. He's been in the NFL for many, many years. Great personality. First time we've had him on the show. He's fantastic. He really is. He really is. Very funny, too.
Oh, yeah.
Very funny. And he has stories. And I love it.
Stories.
Being that he's worked with Boomer Esiason. And I know Boomer. I've met him a couple of times. I've had conversations with Boomer. When you think about Long Island, and we live in a place that if you come from here, you're probably known, okay? Because this is not Long Island has over like 3 million people that live here. There's 3 million people that live here, but we're not. Everybody talks about the borough. We're not a borough. We're an island. We're separated from Queens, Brooklyn, Staten Island, Manhattan. And we're a separate commodity. So when you hear an athlete or NHL, NBA, or NFL players that come here, they're more than likely known, and they're probably good players because this is not a big place. So it's a small place with a lot of people. And it's very expensive to live here, as everybody knows. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking to our friend. We've had him on the show quite a few times, and I'm sure he has his own thoughts on what happened in the playoffs this year to our Knicks. Our friend, Cavaliers play-by-play broadcaster, Tim Alcorn, here on the Sports Loudmouths.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind, like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind, like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama, like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouths.
631-672-3108 is the number to call. You are listening to the Sports Loudmouths. I am your host, Errol Marks. You know that. Speedy Petey, my co-host, my producer, and the fans out there. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Sports Loudmouths, which airs every single Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Great shows, great content, and great guests. Listen to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network throughout the week. If you miss any of the shows, go to Apple Podcasts, 1.6, almost 1.7 million downloads. Check us out, and I'm telling you, you will not regret it. So if you've never listened to our show, as Jim McNally has never listened to our show, and he says, wow, you guys are great. Thank you, Jim, for coming on the show. And now a guy that we've had on the show quite a few times. We love him, and he's doing such a great job. I was listening to him in the playoffs with the Cavaliers as I was smiling as my team completely knocked them out. But hey, nevertheless, they had a great season. We are now talking to the Cavaliers play-by-play broadcaster, our friend, Tim Alcorn. Tim, what's up, man?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Jim McNally is a hard act to follow. He was great. I was in your waiting room, and I caught the final part of that conversation. He's awesome. That was a good, fun chat you had with him, and you mentioned I'm a Bills Mafia guy.
I remember our conversation. Yeah. Listen, we have a lot of people on this show, and if somebody catches my ear, I never forget what you guys say. And people say, how do you remember this stuff? I'm lucky I remember my own name, but when I interview different people and I grow fond of those people, I remember everything that you say to me. So yeah, I also know that you have 4 kids. I remember that. That's so true. There's different things that I remember from different people. And Tim, you've been a good friend of the show and a guy that is very well respected around the league. We've talked to many different play-by-play guys, as we had the Golden State Warriors play-by-play guy on last week in Roy. Yes, and we also had the Grizzlies play-by-play broadcaster as well.
Eric Hasseltine.
Yep. He was on our show last week too, and they both have been on a show too, and I remember them very, very well. So why don't we get into it? Because I believe the Cavaliers had one of their best seasons since LeBron James. They made a move in the offseason. They added Donovan Mitchell when everybody thought he was going to the Knicks. The Cavaliers pulled off a trade, brought in one of the best offensive players in the league, had a sensational year. I thought he was an MVP candidate. He was dealing with certain injuries throughout the season, but he was a hard-nosed, hard player to stop. What was it like, first of all, watching Donovan Mitchell game in and game out? And what was the team's thoughts throughout the season with Donovan Mitchell in the lineup?
Well, those are 2 great questions. And to start, to watch him game in, game out, perform at the level that he did was extraordinarily special. You didn't realize how good he was. I used the phrase throughout the season, especially as the campaign went along. He was hiding in plain sight out in Utah. He's a 3-time All-Star, but you know, the Utah Jazz, it certainly isn't one of the mega markets in the NBA. You don't see them a lot on TNT and ESPN and ABC and that sort of thing. So you knew Donovan was good. And you saw clips of him on the late night ESPN. But you really didn't get a chance to watch him. And so to see him perform at the level that he did, game in and game out for the Cavaliers, and he upped his game in every level. He had career highs and points and rebounds and really carried the team at times. So it was special. He was a different player that I anticipated. He was more of a power player. He really likes to take it to the basket. He likes to attack, which, not that I hadn't seen Donovan play before, but it surprised me how much he did that. And as far as his level of play and being accepted by this team, I'll tell you what, they accepted him and he accepted the team from day one. They blended together beautifully. The Cavs as a team could have said, man, here's this 3-time All-Star. He thinks he's going to come in and be the face of the franchise and all that. And they didn't have that attitude. They welcomed him. And Donovan, from his perspective, was so classy and so gracious the way that he handled it, guys, in the sense that the flip side, he could have come in and said, hey, I'm the all-star.
Right.
I've been to the Western Conference Finals. He didn't do that. He basically said to the team, you tell me how you want me to fit in. You tell me what role you want me to play. He was a tremendous team player. So I thought it was a beautiful marriage from the get-go.
So the chemistry with Darius Garland in that backcourt was one of the better ones throughout the NBA this year. What did you see from those two collectively playing together? Garland, how do you think Mitchell has helped grow Garland's game as well?
Oh, that's a great question. I think DG is a point guard. I don't think DG, even when he was playing with Colin Sexton, was the off guard. He's a point guard. So for Donovan to come in, I think it expanded DG's game. And the other thing that it did, it allowed Garland not to get beat up as much as he was towards the end of the last season. You guys are in New York. You remember that play-in game against Brooklyn last year.
Of course, yes.
DG was just dead on his feet. He had gotten physically manhandled the last third of the season, where teams were doubling him and trapping him. Well, now with Donovan Mitchell, his backcourt mate, you can't afford to do that, because now it's choose your poison. So I thought they complemented each other very, very well. I thought they still have a lot of room to grow, because they both readily admit there's still time for them to kind of nurture that relationship that they have in the backcourt. So I think the sky's the limit as far as what they can do as a backcourt tandem.
We are talking to Cavaliers play-by-play broadcaster Tim Alcorn. You know, it's so interesting because going into the playoffs and obviously being matched up against the New York Knicks, a lot of experts thought the Cavaliers, because of their size and their ability to rebound inside, they were going to give the Knicks a problem. But the Knicks were one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the league. I think they were third, and I think the Cavaliers were in the top 10 too this year. But even Speedy was telling me, I think the size is going to make a huge difference, but it didn't. Obviously, Mitchell Robinson outplayed Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, and that was a big reason why the Knicks beat the Cavaliers. What did you see in that series on why the Knicks completely threw off a very good young Cavaliers team?
Yeah, that's another good question. And listen, going into the series, I don't think there was anybody that thought, oh, the Cavs are going to just waltz past the Knicks. Historically, that 5-4 matchup in the first round is one that you see a lot of the fives beat the fours, because they're the two closest teams as far as their first round matchup is concerned. Now, this year, that played out a little bit differently, but and the Knicks had played some very tough winning basketball against the Cavs during the regular season. So the Cavs knew it was a tough matchup for them. And I think one of the things that really played out, you mentioned Mitchell Robinson, and, I think there was a physicality aspect to the series that the Cavs either weren't anticipating or just couldn't match up with. Between Robinson and Randall, they had a real advantage in that front court against the Cavs with Allen and Mobley as far as the physicality aspect of it was concerned. And for Evan Mobley, it was his very first playoff appearance. Anybody that's watched NBA playoff basketball knows there is a huge step, a monumental step from regular season basketball to playoff basketball. And so I saw the Cavs get beat on the physical end of the game. And I also saw, which we had seen all year long, and we wondered if it was going to rear its head come playoff time, and it did, that lack of that outside sniper, a guy that can just knock down three balls. The Cavs didn't have that throughout the regular season, kind of worked their way through it. But boy, once they got to the playoffs, especially with Allen and Mobley just getting surrounded down in that low block, down in the paint, they'd kick it back out, and there wasn't anybody that could consistently knock down that three ball.
They couldn't stop Jalen Brunson.
No.
They had no answers to Jalen Brunson in that series. And even as good as Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland played, and they shut down Darius Garland in certain aspects of the series. He had one really good game, and then the rest of the series, he was in a no-show. Donovan Mitchell took over all of the offense, but when it was going for tick for tack with him and Jalen Brunson, Brunson was beating Donovan Mitchell, and it was sensational to watch, and everybody was taking shots. We've had so many different people, analysts tell us that the Knicks made a huge mistake, that Jalen Brunson is overrated and all. And I said, you're out of your damn mind. The Knicks got a deal on a point guard that could be a top 10 point guard in the league. And everybody thought I was nuts. And this year he became a top 5 point guard, and he was an elite point guard all season long, averaging 24 points, and was the backbone of this team on why this team beat the Cavaliers. It wasn't even an argument. As good as all the other players played, you talk about Mitchell Robinson and Julius Randle and RJ Barrett throughout the playoffs. The guy that took over no matter what, it was Jalen Brunson. He is the face of this organization. What were your thoughts to Jalen Brunson and what he did against the Cavaliers in that series?
I thought he was spectacular. I thought he was absolutely electrifying. And it's interesting, Ed Cohen, the Knicks radio play-by-play guy, we had him on our weekly Cavs radio show that we do. And we had a conversation with Ed, and I mentioned to him that going back to last summer, when Donovan Mitchell did not end up with the New York Knicks, I think a lot of people thought, Brunson's kind of a consolation prize. Well, I guess we got to take Jalen Brunson. Well, he played a hell of a lot better than a consolation prize. And I mentioned earlier about Donovan when he was in Utah, kind of hiding in plain sight. I think that was a little bit with Brunson down in Dallas with Luka Doncic there. He gathers all the attention and all the headlines. And even when he came to the Knicks, the Eastern Conference has great guards. It's a guard-laden conference. And all of a sudden, here comes Brunson. And I thought he was absolutely magnificent. And you're right. The Cavs didn't have an answer for him in that 5-game series. He was simply sensational.
So Cleveland had the #1 defense in the NBA this season. So what did you see out of them, both on the perimeter and inside, that made them so tough?
Against the Knicks or just all season
in general, all season?
Well, all season long, you had that Twin Tower look of Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. Of course, Evan was one of the finalists for Defensive Player of the Year in the Eastern Conference. I believe finished 3rd in only his 2nd season in the league. He's a magnificent defender, moves his feet extremely well. He was a great soccer player as a youngster. He actually was brought up playing soccer. Yeah, and so his footwork, going back, I think, to the genesis of his soccer playing days, is what makes him special. But he's got that long wingspan, and of course, he plays the 4 for the Cavs, so he has to get out on the wing and defend a 3. So Mobley's an outstanding defender. And Jared Allen, I think, is a real key to the Cavalier defense because he's in the middle. He's the rim protection as far as that paint area is concerned. So if somebody's down in that low block, you've got Jared Allen defending. If you've got a wing or a guard that gets past Garland or gets past Mitchell, there's Allen waiting in the paint. So I would say Allen and Mobley are certainly the key to the Cavaliers defense. The challenge that the Cavs have is that Isaac Okoro is a tremendous defender at the 3 spot, but you need points from your 3 spot. And so far, Isaac just hasn't been able to consistently knock down shots. If you're looking for a 3 and D player, there's half of that with Isaac Okoro because he's a tremendous defender. So when you have that front court of Okoro at the 3, Mobley at the 4, and Allen at the 5, it's really tough for offenses to break that down.
When you look at, Tim, when you look at this offseason, there's a lot of rumors coming out from Cleveland. And one of the guys that a lot of people are talking about is the guy you were just speaking about, Jared Allen, who a lot of people, like the Celtics, are very interested in bringing an athletic big man in that's a good rebounder who could be an anchor of a defense. They're getting old up front. They need a young guy. And his name has been tangled around, or not tangled, dangled around the league over the last couple of days. Do you think, being that the draft is a week away, do you think that these stories are going to obviously grow? And do you think Jared Allen could be on his way out from Cleveland?
Well, Kobe Altman, in his season-ending press conference, Cavs president Kobe Altman said, listen, we won 51 games. We are not going to tear this thing down. We are not going to really blow it up per se. We're going to stay with this group. It's a young group that needs to learn how to win. So there's all sorts of chatter on social media. That's why I don't get on it a lot, to be honest with you, because there are names being bandied about left and right. I think the core four, as they call them, Allen, Mobley, Garland, Mitchell, I think that's the group that the Cavaliers are going to stick with and build around. I think the Knicks series that we were talking about showed some things that they got to improve on, that physicality, that outside shooting, and the lack of experience. I mean, that's huge. I think if you go back to Evan Mobley and Darius Garland and those type of guys who are getting their first taste of playoff basketball, they're going to tell you, we're going to be ready next year. I mean, you could sense that even in their season-ending press conferences. So, listen, Kobe Altman is always willing to take calls and answer calls, but I take him at his word that he's not going to blow this thing up or make some huge blockbuster deal. I think in that sense, he's going to go with the group that he's been building around very patiently and very meticulously the last couple of years.
So you mentioned that they need like kind of that knockdown 3-point shooter, and we've seen a lot of these big name shooting guards become available. Now you're mentioning that they're probably not going to trade Mobley or Allen, so maybe somebody like a Zach LaVine might be out. But is there a realistic trade that you could see, or even maybe even two players that you could see that could really help this Cavaliers team that could be available?
Well, listen, I'm going to let Kobe Altman speak as far as players are concerned, and he's pretty tight-lipped about that. But he did readily admit, I alluded to that season-ending press conference, that they are going to be active insofar as trying to improve the trade. Now, they don't improve the team. I'm sorry. They don't have a first-round pick because of the trade with Donovan Mitchell. That went out to Utah. So anything that's going, I mean, they'll have a late second-round pick, and you never know. But for the most part, those are guys that you keep stocked away or go over to Europe, whatever the case may be. So to improve this roster as it is right now, it's going to take some sort of trade or some sort of mid-level exception. The Cavs certainly don't have a lot of room to operate in so far as the cap is concerned, with Allen and with Donovan and now Darius Garland all having supermax contracts. Evan Mobley now entering his third year in the league, so they certainly know there's a big payday coming for Evan Mobley. So they're going to have to get creative. So again, what names, believe me, as you said, there's a lot of them out there. But I also think Cleveland becomes an attractive destination because when you look at this young basketball team, I'm sure you guys heard the stories last summer when they told Donovan he was going to the Cavs. He was running around the golf course, because he heard they hadn't given up any of those other three guys. So it's a young team that's full of potential. So I think they're going to make some moves, but the core group of this basketball team will remain intact.
As everybody knows, we are talking to Cavaliers play-by-play broadcaster Tim Alcorn. Karis LeVert is a guy that I really, really like. I liked him when he was drafted by Brooklyn. He played for Michigan, and he was a part of that championship contending team, that run. They fell short, but Karis LeVert is a great shooter, one of the better shooters at his position in the league. People don't realize how great of a shooter he was. He dealt with that heart situation when he was traded, and he found a way back with Jared Allen over there with the Cavaliers. And I think this year, especially against the Knicks, you saw so many spots where Karis LeVert, if he actually saw the ball a little bit more, he could be a dangerous shooter for this team. I just thought the Cavaliers misused him throughout the season. I mean, you watched them all season long. Am I right about that? Do you think they could have used him more in that offense before the playoffs to kind of get him involved in the playoffs the way they should have?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm sure, and it's a fair question. And I'm sure that's something that JB Bickerstaff and the staff are going over this offseason as they head into training camp. I'm a huge Karis LeVert fan. I love Karis LeVert. I liked him when he was with Brooklyn and Indiana. It's funny, he's from Columbus, Ohio. And I was just talking today with our affiliate station down in Columbus that carries the Cavs. And, just talking about his high school days and so forth. He's a terrific young man. He's just an outstanding guy. And so he's a real culture guy, which brings me to the point as far as how he was utilized. Karis, like Donovan Mitchell, went to JB and said, I will do whatever you need me to do. Because he had originally earned the starting spot at that 3 position that I alluded to earlier, that was filled by Isaac Okoro. So what that did, it did put some punch into the lineup at that 3, but it weakened the bench. So JB was kind of caught in this yin and yang, because another thing that the Knicks series showed, Karis was starting in the Knicks series. They did have him start. I believe it started in game 2. But
he gave the Knicks problems the whole series.
Yes, he did. But we talk about what the Knicks series exposed. It exposed there weren't any points coming off that bench. So that was the role that Karis was playing more during the season, and he excelled at it. He had an outstanding campaign. In fact, I had a chance to interview Karis at the very end of the season, towards the end. We were down in Atlanta playing the Hawks, and Karis told me it was the best season that he had ever had, insofar as being comfortable on the floor, being healthy throughout the year. He loves being in Cleveland. Obviously, he's close to his hometown. He's close to Columbus. So he's a valuable part of this organization and the team. So I think they're going to find somehow, some way to keep Karis LeVert in a Cavalier uniform, and they'll utilize him however that works out best. And again, I think there's going to be some roster tweaking. There's going to be an overhaul, and depending upon who is brought in and what those players excel at will determine whether or not Karis starts or comes off the bench. But he's been very open with JB, saying, I will be utilized however you want me to be utilized. He's all about winning basketball.
He's a good shooter, and I was very surprised when Sean Marks decided to trade him, and then Indiana, why they traded him made absolutely no sense, because they had a bunch of good young players. They were building around those young players, and then all of a sudden, hey, you know what? We're going to move on from Karis LeVert. We're going to trade him to Cleveland. It didn't make any sense, and I've been saying this for a long time. If Karis LeVert ever becomes available, he is a perfect fit with the Knicks. He would be a great number. He could be a good shooting guard. He's a good shooter, or you could put him at the 3. He's got some length. He's not the best defender, but he's not a bad defender, and he's still in the prime of his career. He's 28 years old. So you can get a lot out of Karis LeVert. I don't think we've seen the best basketball out of Karis LeVert yet. I still think there's a tweak here and a tweak there where we can see Karis LeVert average between 22 and 24 points a game. I think he's that type of player if he's utilized right.
I agree with you. I think he has that potential. He can become a volume scorer. I think he's sneaky good defensively. He does some things. He's got long arms. He's got quick hands, a lot of deflections this year, a lot of steals. So, again, I'm a Karis LeVert fan. So you may say he'd look great in a Knick uniform. I'd be thrilled to have him here in Cleveland for a long time.
I know.
So I wanted to ask about the NBA playoffs in general, because we saw a lot of parity this year, more than usual. A 7 and 8 seed in the conference finals, Miami making the finals as an 8 seed. Do you think that's a sign of things to come in a sport that really has favored a lot of powerhouses in the past?
Wow, that's a really good question. I never really looked at it from that vantage point. Certainly, the NBA playoffs this year were an anomaly insofar as the higher seeds moving on. Whether that becomes a trend, I don't know. I think the NBA play-in is now here to stay. You've got Miami going all the way to an NBA Finals after landing in an 8th spot coming out of the play-in tournament. So, and I like the play-in from the get-go. I was never against it. I think if a team gets hot towards the end of the year or has battled injuries through 60 games and all of a sudden they get their full complement together for the last 20 and can make a push for a 9 or a 10 to at least get in a play-in, I say hats off. And if they advance, they advance. So I do think what Denver has shown, and even Miami, is perhaps that big three concept is going to diminish somewhat. You don't have to have a roster that's loaded with superstars. Now, listen, Jokic is a generational type player, but you don't see Denver with a big three. You don't see Miami with a big three. Again, Butler's a great player. I think in the NBA to win, you have to have a star. Don't get me wrong. You have to have a star. But I think the days of the big three are going to wane a little bit. Let's build this thing, and not just because I work for the Cavs, like the Cavs have done organically, and put pieces together and guys that play well together and be patient. I think you'll see that as well. Mike Malone's been coaching the Nuggets a long time.
He's fantastic.
He's terrific. He was in Cleveland for a while as an assistant, and the Denver organization was patient with him and let that team grow and flourish. I mean, Spoelstra speaks for itself, 15 years in Miami. So I think if anything comes out of this year's playoffs and the success that teams had, it's that if it doesn't work for a year or two, don't blow it up. Let it develop. Let it play itself out, especially if you have talented players. So I think that would become a trend.
I think it's so very interesting when we go back and forth and we talk about all these different NBA teams and these big three and LeBron James. Everybody blames LeBron. And there are a lot of things that you want to point your fingers at LeBron that I would agree with. I wouldn't blame LeBron. I think the big three really started with the Boston Celtics, with Garnett, Pierce, and Ray Allen. That's where the big three really started. And they only won one championship. And then LeBron decided to bounce from Cleveland. He got busted up by the Cleveland fans because he jumped ship. He played in Miami for a couple of years, won a couple of titles, went to a couple of finals. And he wanted to win championships, and Cleveland wasn't ready to win that. And then he went back and he won a championship with them. So as everybody knows, we are talking to Cleveland Cavaliers play-by-play broadcaster Tim Alcorn. You know, Tim, I look at the NBA, and at one point I thought the NBA had the best commissioner in sports. I really did. I thought the understanding after David Stern retired and then Adam Silver took over, I thought, hey, Adam's a good guy, looks like a smart man. And then over the last couple of years, I think Adam has let the players take over the league. And I think we were hearing stories that he was going to take over as the CEO of Disney. He was going to leave the NBA. Now they're unsure on what he is doing, if he's going to stay with the NBA or leave the NBA. There's a lot going on behind closed doors, and I don't think anybody really speaks about it on the radio because maybe people are just trying to hide it because the NBA is still making money. They're getting great TV deals. The players are making millions and millions of dollars. It's crazy. But I think the problem with the league over the last couple of years and why these players like Ja Morant off the court and just other players think that they can do and say whatever they want. As we know, there's a player over there in Dallas who I can't absolutely stand anymore, in Kyrie Irving, who is an anti-Semitic ass, and I'll tell you this, Tim, and I think you know this, and I'm sure you have your own thoughts to this. He leaves after all the stuff that was happening with the Brooklyn Nets. Kyrie apologized for the anti-Semitic views and thoughts. Then he gets traded to Dallas. And then at the press conference, he takes the apology away and pretty much threw it to the wolves. And then whatever he said and whatever the NBA suspended it for, believe it or not, I think Adam Silver looked like an idiot. I really do. Now, what the NBA has done over the last couple of years is they've opened up opportunities for the league to make more and more money. So Adam Silver, if you want to look at the commissioner at that, great. He's making money for the organization. What I don't like about Adam Silver and what I've fallen off on understanding what the commissioner is supposed to do in the league is, and to me, he's supposed to be working with the owners and he's supposed to be making the decision. And he's not doing that. He's letting the players take over the league. What is your thoughts to the way the NBA is moving right now when it comes to ownership and now the players running the league?
Wow. Well, that's a pretty deep question. I think the players have always tried to have some sort of idea as to what sort of impact they can have insofar as their social responsibilities. That's obviously more centered to what they do off the floor and the activities and that sort of thing that they take part in. I don't necessarily agree with you insofar as the players are running the league. I do think it's of the four major sports. I do think it is the sport that certainly is in the forefront of it almost being a shared partnership between the owners and the players. But believe me, the owners are wielding a lot of power. And, to Adam Silver, I think the hammer is going to come down on Ja Morant. We haven't heard what that's going to be yet. So I think the NBA does want to protect its image because the NBA, I mentioned the four major sports. The NBA of all the sports is the most global of all the sports. I mean, there is no doubt about that. It may not be number one in the USA, but it is number one around the world. You look at all the European players and just the viewership and the listenership that comes in from Europe and Asia. That NBA brand is a global brand. So they absolutely want to protect that brand. I don't think the players are running the league, but I think the NBA wants to give and has made an attempt to give the players their space to express their views. They understand that they have a huge platform, not just television, but through all the social media and every other aspect that they're allowed to deliver their message. So I think the NBA has said, we respect that. And obviously, as long as it doesn't go too far over the line, they'll adhere to that. So, it's interesting you bring up Kyrie. The thing about Kyrie, he was in Cleveland here for quite a while.
What an ass.
He never leaves a rosy, flowery goodbye behind him.
No, he doesn't.
He detonates every bridge behind him. So to me, that speaks volumes about Kyrie Irving. So yeah, I don't know if I agree with your premise in the fact that the players are running the league. I do think they have leeway insofar as what their social responsibility is, what their messaging may be, what their words and actions are on platforms, different platforms. And I think it is more of a partnership, but I don't think they're running the league.
So moving off of basketball for a second, you mentioned last year you did some baseball broadcasting. You've done any of that this year with the Guardians?
Not yet. In fact, this was the week. Last year was the year. Was the week leading into Father's Day. But no. But I had an absolute
Happy Father's Day, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I had an absolute blast doing that last summer. So much fun to sit in on those games. I had 3 in Colorado and 3 in LA at Dodger Stadium. And the Dodger Stadium experience, I know you got a lot of listeners in Brooklyn and being in New York, but the Dodger Stadium experience was almost surreal to me. It was like, this is an incredible moment to be at Dodger Stadium. And the next booth over was the Vin Scully booth. And, just to be able to take part in that and call 3 games from Dodger Stadium, that was incredibly special. It really was.
All right, so since you haven't done any baseball this year, I'll ask you about football. It's like, as you mentioned, you're a big Buffalo Bills guy.
Huge.
Yeah, the DeMar Hamlin incident this year, very scary for everybody, not really just the Bills teammates and the Bengals players, but everyone in that community. And now there's a chance that they're saying he could be playing this year. He was participating in some drills. So
he will. He'll be back this year.
So what is your thoughts on all that?
He'll be back. Quick story. I don't know how much time you guys have, but a quick story about the Hamlin situation. It was in a Monday night game against Cincinnati. That was the same Monday night that Donovan Mitchell scored 71 points.
I remember
Chicago.
that. Wow.
So I'm a huge Bills guy, but I'm also, I'm passionate about doing Cavs basketball. But that's not to say I don't glance at my phone once in a while and check the score. And so during the commercial timeouts of the Cavs game, I was checking Twitter and whatever to see how the Bills were doing, and I saw game suspended. And I'm like, game suspended? It's January. Usually it's suspended because of lightning or weather conditions. And I knew Ohio, we weren't under any storm watch or anything. Anyway, long story short, I got done with the game, and your adrenaline's just flowing because you've witnessed one of the greatest games in NBA history with Donovan pouring in 71. And so once I got broke down and I looked at my phone and I saw a game canceled. So now I had time to kind of read what had happened, and I was like, oh my God. So I went from this high to this low. And not just as a Bills fan, just as a human being, to say, how does a football player almost lose his life and is in the fight for his life at that time? It was only a short time after they had called the game. But I'll never forget that night. And it was the highest of highs with Donovan Mitchell. And I don't live too far from the arena. So by the time I got back home, they were still in their television coverage and explaining, what they had seen and what folks down in the field had witnessed. And it was so jarring. So, boy, thank goodness. Thank the Lord he was able to come through. And again, I say that not as a Bills fan, just as everybody around the country and everybody around the NFL would say. It really does put a football game into perspective.
Well, Tim, we really appreciate the time. I know you're a busy guy. It is your off season. Enjoy it, because the NBA season comes pretty fast. And as we know, the draft is next week. As soon as the draft is over, you're going to have practices, and you're going to be up and ready to go by October. So it goes fast. The summer goes fast, and I hate the summers here. It's too humid. It's too disgusting out, too sticky. And I don't go to the ocean. I don't like sharks. And then when I go and swim in a swimming pool, it's so hot and so disgusting out. It's like I'm swimming in piss. So I just
I don't think the New York Advertising Bureau is going to be hiring you. There's I Love New York, and then there's swimming in piss. So you go from one extreme to the other. But
don't worry, if Errol ever came to Cleveland, he won't jump in the Lake Erie like Hugh Jackson did.
Listen, I spent my summers as a kid in New York. My grandparents lived in Queens, and I have all sorts of family out on Long Island. So when we go in to play the Knicks or go in to play the Nets, I always hook up with aunts and uncles and cousins that are all out in Long Island. So I will be the commercial. I love New York.
There you go. Anyway,
it's great to be out with you guys. You guys, I'll just echo what Mr. McNally said. You guys do a hell of a show. It's a great show, and
thank you.
I enjoy coming on. So anytime you want to have me, hey, let's do this again. It's always
we'll definitely get you on again. We love you too, and you do such a great job. I was listening to your play-by-play during the playoffs. I had a smile on my face, and I felt like reaching out to you, say, "Hey, Tim, what do you think about my Knicks now?"
Hey, the Knicks deserve to win. They played a great series. I thought Tom Thibodeau did a fantastic job of coaching that series. Hats off to the Knicks. They did a great job.
And then he got out-coached by Spoelstra, so thank you to Tom Thibodeau on that one. Anyways, thank you, Tim. We'll be in touch soon, man. Great interview.
My pleasure. All right. Thanks, guys. Let's do it again.
Absolutely. Tim Alcorn, fantastic. He really is. His takes and his NBA takes, and even he's a Buffalo Bills fan. It was so funny. We had Jim McNally on, who is a big Buffalo Bills fan too. So when he mentioned, I saw Tim like jumping and pumping his fist, and I knew Jim McNally. And by the way, Jim McNally, fantastic, really good personality. He really is. Being that he's 80 years old, it's so much energy. It's just fantastic energy coming from him. So really, really. By the way, Carl says Errol hates all seasons. He was complaining about the cold in March. No, I wasn't. I never complain about the cold. Have you ever heard me complain about the cold?
No.
Never. I don't complain about the cold, Carl. Never. You will never hear me ever complain how cold it is. And by the way, March was not cold. It was not cold at all this winter. I don't know what anybody thinks, but the world is slowly ending because global warming is going to take over, and we're going to see tsunamis and volcano eruptions. I mean, people don't realize this isn't good when we're not getting snow and it's not cold outside. I mean, in December at one point, it was 75 degrees. If you think that's good in the beginning of winter, it being 75 degrees, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I could have swimmed in December and I probably wouldn't have been cold. I don't get cold. By the way, when the pool opens up and it's right now about 70 degrees on the hottest day here so far, I'm swimming. So I don't care about the cold. So stop it, Carl. Stop making up stories that are absolutely untrue about me. I could tell you what I am, and I could tell you how I am. And I'm sure Speedy, who's worked with me for over 5 years, knows when it comes to the cold, I will never complain. Ever.
I think the only thing you objected to was a polar plunge, I think, was the only thing.
Well, because when they were doing the polar plunge, it was February.
Right.
And it's in the ocean, which I don't like jumping in the water because I don't like sharks. I used to be a surfer, but there's too many sharks in the water over here. Tiger sharks have been seen, hammerheads, great whites. How many great whites have we seen so far already? And it's summer really just began. So I'm not going in the water. So they're polar plunging when it was 25 degrees at the coldest time, coldest weekend. They're jumping in the water. You think I'm doing that? Never. I will not do that. If you're jumping in the pool, I'll do it. I have no objections to doing that. But you see me jump in the ocean. You won't see me jump in the ocean if the water's 80 degrees.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's just not me. So anyways, a lot to get into. Bradley Beal trade rumors. Obviously, multiple reports say that the Wizards and Bradley Beal will try to find a trade partner if the Wizards are going to rebuild. The Wizards brought in a new chief executive, Michael Winger, a former general manager with the Clippers. Beal has a no trade clause and will be 30 years old at the end of the month. Beal has 4 years and $200 million remaining on his new contract he just signed last year. The Heat and the Bucks have been two teams most interested in trading for Beal, but the Trailblazers, Celtics, and Knicks have also expressed some interest. As we heard, the Knicks were very interested at the trade deadline last year in making a move for him. I think the only reason why it didn't happen is the Wizards at the last minute pulled out, because there were stories coming out. The Knicks couldn't trade RJ Barrett last year, that they wanted RJ Barrett, and they couldn't move RJ Barrett, so they pulled out. They offered Obi Toppin and Emmanuel Quigley, I heard, and I think it was 2 or 3 first-round draft picks to land Bradley Beal. They pulled out because they wanted RJ Barrett. So Beal has played 60 games or less in each of his 4 seasons. Beal averaged 23.2 points per game, 5.4 assists per game, and 3.9 rebounds per game last season. Bradley Beal is one of the best guards in the league. He is. The problem with Bradley Beal isn't his offensive game. The guy can play offense with anybody. Honestly, he's as explosive as any offensive guard in the league. When we talked about Donovan Mitchell, he's just as explosive. This guy won a scoring title. Okay, he can absolutely shoot with the best of them. The problem with Bradley Beal is not his offense. Again, it's his defense. He don't play a lick of defense. Not a lick. That guy, he's pretty much, when he's playing and he's defending his whoever he's defending against, he practically pretends that they're a ball, and he has like a red curtain and says Olay, and he lets them go right through and right past them, right to the hole. He does not stop a lick. And that's the problem. How is Tom Thibodeau going to change the way this kid plays if he comes to the Knicks? You already have a bunch of guys that don't play a lick of defense. They don't. And to land Bradley Beal, you're going to have to trade your best and your anchor defensive player in Mitchell Robinson, because they're definitely going to want Mitch. You're probably going to have to trade RJ. And you're probably going to have to give up either Obi Toppin, Quigley, and Grimes and draft picks to get Bradley Beal. They're not just going to give him away. He's 30 years old too. A guy that's been dealing with multiple injuries over the last couple of years. The guy has not played more than 60 games in any of the 4 seasons he's been there. That's alarming. So how could you sit here if you're a Knicks fan? And even with the Celtics, I know the Celtics are interested in him. And I could see him going to the Celtics. I know the Bucks are. He's not going to the Bucks. The Bucks are probably going to start rebuilding in the next 2 or 3 years. Eric Middleton is done. You saw him this year. He's a shell of himself. That injury that he had the year before, that knee injury, I think it was a knee, he had surgery on it. He is not the same player. And Holiday's a fantastic defensive player. He's an all-world defensive player. I think he was first-team defensive player. He was, I believe, one of the best defensive players in the whole league. But here's the thing. Holiday's getting up there in age too. They don't have any bench. They don't have any youngsters that they're rebuilding with. They don't have any of that. And that's why a lot of people believe Giannis might want out in the next year or two. And I know the Bucks are an organization that help Giannis and his family out, but Giannis wants to win championships. And the Bucks, I think, have gone as far as they can. And if Giannis goes to another organization or a team that's looking for that one athletic, talented player that can take him or bring them over the hump, like the Knicks or maybe Miami or one of those teams that he can absolutely help out and make them a contender right off the bat, well, then that makes sense.
Ben, it's going to take more than Middleton, Ingles, and a future first-round pick for Beal. Because in order for the Bucks to be able to trade Middleton, Middleton's going to have to take that player option, which is $40 million. And that's going to make him getting traded a lot harder to do.
Middleton is not the same player. So they're going to look at Middleton as an add-on player. He's not the same player.
Right.
He really isn't. He's not the same player. You saw it throughout the season and in the playoffs. Why do you think they got eliminated the way they did in the first round? Milwaukee, where everybody thought they were the favorites of winning everything this year, they got eliminated, first of all, because every time they play Boston, and I'll say it again, and I'll go right into it, they showed you, and Miami showed you, how to defend Giannis. If you keep Giannis around the perimeter and you keep him outside of the box, Giannis isn't the same player. Miami has shown that. Spoelstra has shown that, and his defensive style of game, and so has Boston. Those are the two teams that showed you the way of stopping Giannis.
Yeah, and again, you look at the Milwaukee cap situation too. Being they have a lot of veteran guys, not all max contracts, but they're gonna have to move a lot of that too in order to make it work. And Beal's gonna have to go abide by that. And Beal, who has a no trade clause, can say, "I'm not going to go to Milwaukee if Middleton is traded in this deal," and that's going to be hard to keep every one of them unless they can somehow trade Drew Holiday. But Drew Holiday, again, he's older, yes,
and
he's
expensive.
And expensive, great defensive player, sure, but
what's he making, like $36 million a year?
Right, also injury prone though too in himself, and that's going to create a lot of bad value too. And the Bucks are really getting into the perfect scenario to be able to trade Middleton too, a team that could take him on and really needs the 3-point shooting. And there's just really not a lot of those in the league right now. Miami, if they can move Kyle Lowry, could be, but
I don't even think they're going to be. They're going to have to move more than just Kyle Lowry. First of all, they're in cap hell right now. They gave Tyler Hero a lot of money in the offseason.
Right.
The guy did not stay healthy for the playoffs. He came back at the end of the playoffs in the championship. They're not. Miami is an old team. They really are. When you look at the young teams, and we talk about Cleveland, Cleveland has pieces that you can move to bring in a Bradley Beal or one of these guys, a Zach LaVine, or whoever they want to bring in to help out offensively or defensively. The Knicks are another team with Leon Rose and the way he's contracted these players. He gave them player options that work for the team. So he can move RJ Barrett in the offseason if he wants. He can move Mitchell Robinson. He can move any one of those players. And he has to decide on who he wants to keep and who he wants to sign, because Obi Toppin's contract is coming up, I think,
it's
this year. So they got to decide what they're doing, Obi. They got to start deciding what they're doing with Hart. So they're going to have to make decisions. If they're not keeping these guys, trade them. Obi is still under contract right now. They can move Obi Toppin. If they want to get a first-round draft pick this year and they think they can move in the top 10 for trading Obi, or maybe in the top 15, maybe they move on from Obi. I don't know. I don't want them to move on from Obi. But again, you can't keep all your players. But the Knicks have the money. They can bring in a supermax player. They have the money to do it. Now the question is, are they going to make the right choice with that player? Do they wait until next year where Giannis could say, you know what, he has a player option where he can opt out of his contract? He could do that and go to the Knicks or go to the Lakers if LeBron comes back for another 2-3 years because he wants to play with his son. Who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of months? What I do know right now is when you talk about Milwaukee's window of winning is done. It's done. I'm just telling you the truth. They were a contender this year and they fell apart. And again, going back to Giannis, do you notice the way teams defend him in the playoffs and the way they defend him in the regular season, and how many problems Giannis has in the playoffs getting to the hoop, getting to the hole, forcing perimeter 17, 18-foot jump shots, which is not his game and not what he's strongest at. You could see the difference in the way Giannis plays in the regular season and the playoffs. It becomes a half-court game. They press on Giannis. They make Giannis make mistakes and put him in positions to fail.
Carl has a funny comment. Better defender, Bradley Beal or James Harden, and death is not an option. I'll give it to Beal slightly because I think Harden will do more stupid things.
James Harden's horrible defender. Yeah. Oh my God. You might as well tell James Harden to sit and eat a sandwich while he's playing defense. The guy doesn't play defense. He's horrible. He's horrible. He is an all offensive player. And honestly, for anybody to think that James Harden, and if you look at his numbers, he's a Hall of Famer. James Harden is a Hall of Famer right now because of his numbers. Do I think he's a Hall of Famer if you put me on the top of the guards that we have seen over the last, 10 years? He's not.
No.
He is not. And I would take 12 guards over James Harden. I don't care if he won an MVP. Everybody keeps talking about Steph Curry won 2 MVPs. Yeah, okay. Good for Steph Curry. And the fact that some people put Steph Curry as a top 10 player of all time, they're on drugs. He's not. He don't play a lick of defense. How do you put a guy that plays not a lick of defense as a top 10 player of all time?
And Steph Curry's defense still looks very good in comparison to James Harden. That's the sad part.
He's a superstar the way he plays defense over James Harden. The guy don't play a lick of it.
Right. And to answer your question even more, Carl, at least Bradley Beal and Steph Curry will show the effort on defense. James Harden gives up on plays, too.
Oh, my God. And Bradley Beal, I like Bradley. I think he's a great offensive player. He's sensational. He can do a lot of different things. He is a great three-point shooter. There are a lot of teams, aka the Knicks, that need a perimeter three-point shooter that can dominate. The Knicks' problem throughout this year is they're a great inside team. They can get into the inside and score out well. The problem with them is if they're playing with twos and other teams are playing with threes, you're going to lose most of the time.
Carl also asked, Reggie Miller or Steph Curry, better defender?
Reggie Miller. You can't even argue that. Reggie Miller was a much better defender than Steph Curry. As a matter of fact, at least, even though Reggie Miller wasn't known for his defense, what Reggie Miller did is he talked crap. The guy talked so much crap, he threw players off when he played against them. Reggie Miller was the biggest crap talker. I'm not going to say it on radio. I could say other things. I've heard from players, we've interviewed players, Reggie Miller was the biggest pain in the ass. Okay? And that's a form of defense. Because if you could throw a guy off, you don't have to defend him. You could just say something about his mom, his brother, his sister, his grandmother, and his wife, a.k.a. Kevin Garnett, talking to Carmelo and Lala, talking about her, what did he call it, Cheerios or something like that? It was like eating Cheerios. I mean, come on, man. And Carmelo Anthony took it to the heart. If you can get in somebody's head, that's a form of defense. Steph Curry does a stupid shimmy, throws his mouthpiece at people. What kind of defense does he play? What? Because he averages 1.5 steals a game. Oh my God, he's a great defender. He gives up on plays. And for anybody to put Steph Curry in the top 10, knowing that he is not an elite defender, shame on you. And you want to know the truth? I'll say it again. When you look at Chris Paul and you look at Steph Curry and you look at their all-around games, who would you rather want? Honestly. You look at top to bottom, who's a better all-around player? I am taking Chris Paul in his prime over Steph Curry in his prime any day. Any day. Because what Chris Paul does, he makes everybody around him better. He plays defense. He can defend multiple positions. He does everything good.
Carl also has a good comment, too. The top 5 current worst defenders in the NBA.
Oh, my God.
Well, Kyrie Irving and James Harden are definitely up there. I would put Trae Young in there. He's not a very good defender either.
Keith says he's the greatest shooter ever, Curry. Yeah, that's great. Great. He's the greatest shooter ever. But what else does he do? What is he good at? There were a lot of great shooters. Ray Allen was a great shooter. Reggie Miller was a great shooter. Pistol Pete was a great shooter. Jerry West was a great shooter. By the way, there was no three-point line when Jerry West and Pistol Pete played. Okay? Being a great shooter is great. He changed the game. Fantastic. Okay? And you say he's great shooting and passing. Steph Curry, okay, as a point guard in his career, what does he average as a point guard passing every single season? 6 assists?
Yeah, I was going to say low 6s, high 5s, probably.
That's not a good passer. Go look at Chris Paul and the way he passes the ball. He led the league 10 or 12 out of the 19, 18 seasons he's played in the NBA.
Yeah, he's 6.3 for his career, Steph Curry.
That's not good. That's not good as a point guard. And he was really a shooting guard, transitioned into a point guard when he came into the league.
Right, because his ball handling got better too.
Yes.
So.
And everybody wants to say, well, this and this and this about. I'm not hating on Steph Curry, okay? I'm just telling you facts. I know the game of basketball. I was a pretty good basketball player. I wasn't an NBA style of player, but when I watch the game and I understand the game, ask anybody that knows me. Out of all the teams I rooted for, and I was a great hockey player, and I played all sports, my favorite team growing up was the Knicks. They were my favorite. I would watch Knicks games religiously as a kid. I love the Knicks. And I watched a lot of basketball. And that's why when I sit back and people try to compare Michael Jordan to anybody in the league right now, I think they're insane. Because Michael Jordan is the greatest athlete in professional sports in history. You want to put Michael Phelps, Serena Williams, whatever. You want to put anybody against him. He is better than all of them.
Carl also says, I don't know but was Kareem a good defender? Would he be top 10? I don't know about all time, but he's definitely the top tier.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is a top 10 player.
Top 10 player, yeah. I think he's saying defender. Raw defender, probably not.
No, but Kareem
20,
wasn't.
Yeah.
Kareem wasn't a bad defender.
No, he was a good defender, no question.
He wasn't a bad defender. He could be the anchor of the Lakers. When he was in Milwaukee, when he was playing for Milwaukee, he was a great defender. And Kareem changed the game.
Oh yeah,
so the sky hook, everything. He changed the game. And that's. And everybody says, well, Steph Curry changed the game. Yeah, he changed the game for the worse. Go look at the game right now. When teams are averaging 32 to 35 three-pointers a game, how could you sit here and think that makes the game better? It ruins the game. The big man is completely obsolete now in the NBA.
Yeah, they're signed on veteran minimum contracts a lot of the time.
They're obsolete now. To have a big man now, it means nothing. How does that make the game better? When the number one position when we were growing up was the center position. He was the anchor. He was the hook. Now you look at the game, I just think it's pathetic. It's boring. As a matter of fact, ask me how many games I watched in the regular season this year, even as a Knicks fan, the way the Knicks were playing.
You mean any non-Knicks games? Probably 5.
I watched about 7 games without the Knicks, and Knicks games, I watched 28. 28 Knicks games all season long before the playoffs. I don't watch basketball anymore because it's pathetic. And the NBA should be ashamed of themselves. And the kids, when we grew up, and I'll go back to it, I was a team fan, not a player fan. It was never about the name on the back of the jersey. It was about the name and the team in front of it. When I grew up as a fan and as an athlete, what did my coach used to tell me? It's not about the name in the back of your jersey. It's about the name and the brand in front of it. It's changed now. The league has changed.
Oh, yeah. Players are gone after a year for a lot of these teams now. Look at Kyrie Irving and James Harden, Exhibit A and B.
The ultimate sport for ultimate team play is football. It is football. And I'll tell you why. Because as good and as important the quarterback position is, if you don't have a good offensive line and you don't have a pass rusher and you don't have a number one corner, good luck, you're not going to win.
Receiver, too.
Now receiver, which has become an important aspect of the game. But you don't really need a number one wide receiver.
I mean, unless you're the Chiefs and have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Yeah, a lot
you
of
really
the teams
don't.
that have won.
You really don't need a number one wide receiver. You can have multiple number twos and win. You don't need number one wide receivers. You just need a competent all-around team that could play on all cylinders. And you need a coach that knows how to change up things in the second half of the game. If you don't have that, ask the Jets. They've had a bunch of those guys that didn't know what the hell they were doing.
Even Andy Reid himself had to evolve into that too. Remember all the times that people were mocking him for the clock management
when he was on the Eagles, he was horrible.
Oh yeah,
he was horrible.
And they had like the
That's
most
why
double-digit leads blown among coaches that won that much.
That's why he lost in the Super Bowl against the Patriots.
Yeah.
Because of his play calling in the third quarter, which cost him in the third quarter going into the fourth quarter. And no matter how good Terrell Owens was playing in that game, which he was playing on one leg, they couldn't do anything in the fourth quarter because of the play calling of Andy Reid.
Mm-hmm. And I think the NFC Championship game against Arizona, he kind of tried to do reverse. Everyone was complaining, oh, he's too conservative. And then he got too aggressive at certain points in the fourth quarter, and they turned it over on downs under with like a minute 40 to go.
Mm-hmm. I think the game is completely changed, and that goes to John Morant. The length of John Morant's suspension hasn't been released yet by the NBA. But many insiders in the NBA believe it will be between 25 and 30 games. Adam Silver mentioned that the decision will come before the draft, which is next Thursday. Lil Wayne, who had a gun possession charge in the past, has attempted to meet with Morant and wants to give him his advice. Reports have mentioned John Morant has ghosted Wayne and is ignoring his advice on purpose. Another rapper, Cameron, who was charged with pistol whipping while he played college basketball, told Ja, "Don't be me. And stick to basketball because you can't rap." Reports have mentioned that the Grizzlies could pursue and aggressively draft day trade the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies will know the length of Ja's suspension by that time. So they're saying that the Grizzlies could actually move up in the draft if they lose John Morant for a significant amount of time. And maybe have to fill in that position or maybe make a trade. Maybe a Bradley Beal would be a guy that would be an offensive juggernaut. But what would they have to trade to get Bradley Beal?
It's going to have to start with Desmond Bain or Jaren Jackson, that's for sure.
I mean, here's what I'm going to say about John Morant before we get into basketball. I mean, before we get into football, because Mike Tannenbaum's an idiot, and I'm going to attack him in every kind of way in just a few moments. I sit here today, and I like John Morant. I think John Morant is one of the most talented players we've seen at the point guard position really in about 20 years. The guy's athletic. We've seen him jump over people. We've seen him pass the ball, take over the games defensively. He could defend his position very, very well. He's an athletic beast, and he can shoot the ball. And he's a good free throw shooter. The problem with this kid is that he believes the game should stop because of himself. He thinks the game needs him more than he needs the game. And this is the problem, the way the NBA is moving towards that. Tim disagreed with me that he doesn't believe the players are taking over the game. I disagree with Tim. I don't want to hear it's a 50-50 swap. The owners pay your salaries. The fans pay your salary. People are buying your jersey, praising you as a player because you're a superstar player and they've never seen anything like it. And then you're carrying around a gun, a loaded gun, dancing around in a strip club, playing pickup games and threatening kids and going into delis and pointing at, I don't know what the hell you're doing.
Shoe stores too.
Shoe stores. And then you're playing and hanging out on Instagram and putting up videos you playing with a toy gun, which I doubt it was a toy gun.
Even so, why are you holding a gun in a video?
Okay, so, and I don't think, why would John Morant listen? And this is the truth. Why would he listen to Cameron? I wouldn't listen to Cameron. Who the hell's Cameron? Cameron hasn't made a hit in like 10 years. I think this last album that I actually listened to was Purple Haze. And I'm not taking shots at you, Cam. I'm just telling you the truth. He actually does a good podcast. It's a basketball podcast. I think Cameron is very knowledgeable what's going on in the NBA. And he was a pretty good basketball player. Could have played NBA basketball. So could have J. Cole. a great rapper from Queens or Brooklyn who's a fantastic rapper and a great basketball player. Adam Silver has lost the league. He has lost the players. I don't care what anybody says. And I know Tim Alcorn wasn't going to take shots at Adam Silver because Adam Silver, he knows and he respects and he works in the NBA. But I don't work in the NBA and I don't give a crap what Adam Silver thinks of me. And what I'm going to say about Adam Silver, who I respected, is that you let Kyrie Irving run rampantly, anti-Semitic views, suspended him for 9 games. When Black Lives Matter was such a big objective for the NBA to cover, okay? And I was one of the supporters to it. But when an anti-Semitic view comes out and Kyrie puts it out there and players were agreeing, and all you need is the voices of LeBron James and Kevin Durant and the big stars to come out there, Kawhi Leonard, to come out there and protect the views of the fans who are, a lot of them are Jewish and big basketball fans. I know that for a fact. Here in New York, huge amount of the fans are basketball fans and they're Jewish. And he comes out with that view and nobody, including Adam Silver, who's Jewish. If David Stern was running this league, John Morant would have been suspended for the year. He would have been gone. You saw what he did with Ron Artest. Meta World Peace. He suspended him. He didn't start that fight. He protected himself. And they suspended him. And he had to go and talk to people and therapists and nuts. This guy's carrying around a gun. He could kill somebody or somebody could kill him.
Yep. And you're just basically saying 25 to 30 games is what we're hoping to actually show some civility in this. But honestly, with all these different things that he's done, he probably should get more. And that just shows you the NBA only caring about the money at this point. Yeah, you could say, all right, we need the stars of the game, whatever. There's enough stars in the game that the league could be supplemented well enough without John Morant, and there's enough drama with every other player that seems to happen in the NBA between LeBron and Kyrie, etc., that they're not going to have enough storylines. They'll have plenty.
I can't sit here and support anything that's going on in the NBA right now. I cannot. And the fact that the Spurs won the number 1 pick again, they've done it 80. They did it in 87 with the Admiral. They did it in 98 with Tim Duncan, and now they're getting it in 2023 with arguably the greatest prospect in NBA history. It's ridiculous. And the Knicks haven't had a number 1 pick since 1980, 84, 85?
Yeah.
With Patrick Ewing, which everybody thought that the Knicks rigged it or the NBA rigged it. Okay? Does that make sense? The Spurs have been bad for what? 4 years? Right. 5 years?
They had the longest active playoff streak before that.
And now they get the best talent in NBA history. It's ridiculous. What an absolute, I'm not even going to say it on live radio because it makes me sick, but I just think there's something going on with the NBA and you just have to shake your head. You have to shake your head. It doesn't make any sense. There's nothing you can argue to tell me that it's natural or it's real or it makes any sense to you that a team is going to change everything. Now, with this kid, if he turns out to be the player anywhere close to Tim Duncan, they're going to win another 5-6 titles.
Right. And you look at the case of even the NBA draft in general, too, not getting as much attention as you would think, even comparison to everything else, just because of all these other incidents that have gone on the court. All right. John Morant's going through all this. LeBron is announcing, I might retire. Kyrie Irving saying, oh no, I want to team up with LeBron. No, those stories, those dramas are taking all the headlines away from an NBA draft. That's going to be a memorable night for a lot of these kids. Obviously, Wembanyama is going to go number 1, but there's, again, other prospects that want their attention too. And they're not getting it because the NBA is a league full of drama queens.
They're all drama queens. They really are. And why not put Kyrie Irving and LeBron James on one team so it really becomes a drama queen?
Kyrie Irving's the queen of the drama queens.
Former Jets GM and Dolphins executive Mike Tannenbaum says DeAndre Hopkins going to the Patriots could change the entire AFC East. He also added that Hopkins added 6 points per game to the Cardinals offense and thinks he would do the same for the Pats. The Patriots and the Titans are 2 teams Hopkins has met with so far. The Patriots already signed Juju Smith-Schuster and Mike Gesicki so far this offseason and brought Bill O'Brien as the offensive coordinator again. The Patriots currently have $14 million in cap space right now, and Hopkins had 64 catches, 717 yards, 3 touchdowns in 9 games last season. I'm going to say this very nicely, okay? And I like Mike. I met Mike before. I've interviewed him before. Nice guy. The guy has a way of building circumstantial things in conversation. And he loves to be the center of attention in conversation. Loves it. Because he'll bring up that he was the one that drafted DeBrickashaw Ferguson. He was the one that drafted Nick Mangold. He was the one that drafted Darrelle Revis and David Harris. Congratulations to Mike Tannenbaum. Here's where I think Mike Tannenbaum is a complete idiot. You have been around the New York Jets and New York organization for years. You hated the New England Patriots. Absolutely despised Bill Belichick. How many times have you said, if you're a New York guy, you can never, ever, ever respect a guy like Bill Belichick? And then you go out on national TV and radio on ESPN, and you go out there and try to tell the AFC East, the weakest team in the AFC East right now, who made practically decent moves. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster is a decent player. They have a good running game. They don't know what their quarterback is. Their wide receivers are horrible. I don't want to sit here and argue with Jeff. Their wide receivers are horrible. Okay? Stop it. Juju Smith-Schuster, the guy can't stay healthy. He doesn't shut up. He's too much on social media. Parker, since he's come into the league, what did he play? He came from Clemson, right?
He came from Louisville. I think he was Teddy Bridgewater's quarterback.
All right, so he came from Louisville. This guy was a top 14 draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
He's never amounted to anything, even with the Dolphins. And now he's with the Patriots. And stop it with this kid. He's not good. All right, he's a number 2, more like a number 3. Okay, they lost Jacoby Myers. He goes to the Oakland or Las Vegas Raiders. Good for him. All right, he got his money. Good for him. DeAndre Hopkins is a good player. Is he DeAndre Hopkins from 5 years ago, and when he was the best, I believe, the best wide receiver in football? He's not. Okay, this guy is the only wide receiver I could remember that was caught doing steroids. Okay, I don't remember another wide receiver in the last 10 years that have been caught doing steroids. That's one. Number 2, if he goes to a Bill Belichick offense, besides Randy Moss and Gronkowski, could you give me another name, a wide receiver that was really dominant throughout the season that had 1,400 yards with the Patriots? And the answer is none. Edelman never had 1,400 yards. I'll be very surprised if Edelman had 1,000 yards in a season as the number 1 guy for the Patriots.
No, probably the next closest would probably be Welker, but I don't think he even had 1,400 yards.
No, Wes Welker had a lot of catches, but it was short passes, and that was what he was good at. They never did. And to say that DeAndre Hopkins is going to make a difference, go look at Miami's defense right now.
Oh, yeah.
Go look at this secondary, which we've been talking about. They have Jalen Ramsey. We were arguing about this 2 years ago, that Howard and Ramsey were the best corners in the league. Now they're playing on both sides of the field with each other. That secondary is as good as anybody's.
Javon Holland's a nice young safety, so.
Then you go to the Jets. They had the number 1 corner and number 1 defensive rookie of the year last year in Sauce Gardner, who's only going to get better. DJ Reed, okay, who was probably a top 5 corner in the league last year. And then Michael Carter, who was a top 15 and probably a top 5 slot corner in all of football last year. And then you add Amos. and the players that they added this offseason. Tell me, how the hell is DeAndre Hopkins going to give them 6 points by himself? It doesn't make sense. It sounds stupid. It's not going to change the AFC East. It really isn't. What's going to change the AFC East for the Patriots is Bill Belichick. If Bill Belichick finds a way to stop Aaron Rodgers, put pressure on Aaron Rodgers, make Aaron Rodgers get uncomfortable in the pocket, that's how they're going to beat the Jets. They need to put Tua on his ass and knock him out of a game. That's the only way they're beating Miami. And Buffalo, all you have to really do with Buffalo, and we've seen this over and over and over and over and over and over again, is keep Josh Allen off the field. If you run the ball against Buffalo and you dominate the line of scrimmage, you're going to beat Buffalo. The Jets did it last year with Zach Wilson. Okay? So, again, going back to Tannenbaum's stupidity, okay? Going back to Tannenbaum's stupidity, and I'm going to say this once again to throw him under the bus. If Tannenbaum thinks that one player, and it's a wide receiver, is going to change the AFC East for the better, it is a ridiculous statement. It makes him even more, it makes you even more dumber to listen to an analyst executive, former executive that really has lost his touch. And that's why he'll never be an executive again in the NFL. He's horrible. That was a horrible statement. And I like DeAndre Hopkins. Is he a good player? Yes. Could he still play? Yes. Did he play 9 games and have 717 yards last year? Great for him. He also played for in a crappy division with a crappy team who really teams just didn't give a crap about when they played against. Hence the reason why Kyler Murray could be on his way out after this year. He's going to miss half the season because he has a torn ACL. And Kingsbury's hanging out in Japan or wherever he is. He's in USC.
Yeah, USC, and who knows? Maybe he'll end up in another country at this point because he was in Thailand in the offseason and doing all other things. But yeah, one player is
horrible statement by him. It really is. Makes him look stupid.
Yeah, one player at 32 years old too is not going to make a difference except if you're a quarterback either.
He's not Randy Moss,
right?
Okay, he's just not
right. And Randy Moss, when he came over there too, was
in the prime of his career,
coming off really great seasons on really bad quarterback play.
He was
with the Raiders.
29 when he went to the 28 or 29 when he went to the Patriots.
Right.
He was in the prime of his career.
Mm-hmm. Think about this. The 2 years that he was with the Raiders, 1 year he had Aaron Brooks as his quarterback. The other year he had Jamarcus Russell and whatever backup they had over there.
And Randy Moss had Tom Brady throwing him the ball.
Right.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. Who does DeAndre Hopkins, if he goes to the Patriots, have throwing him the ball? Let me ask you that question. I have one. Macaroni Jones, who everybody thinks is the worst quarterback in the AFC right now. When you put the list of quarterbacks right now, in their division, he's by far the worst.
Yes.
Okay? If you go through the AFC right now, let's go into the AFC right now. I'm going to go right now. We're going to go through each team, and we're going to compare each team to quarterbacks. And I'm going to be honest right now with each team. The Bills have Josh Allen. Josh Allen's better. Tua's better. Aaron Rodgers, better. That's okay. So there goes. The Bengals, Joe Burrow, better. Ravens, obviously we know who there is. Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's better. The Steelers have a young guy, okay, who honestly is better than him. Okay, he showed. I forget his name. Hank. Yes, Pickett. He showed in certain games this year. He got his team in the playoffs. He didn't. The Patriots didn't. The Browns, okay? We all know he's not better than Watson. The Jaguars, no way is he better over there. The Titans, Tannehill's better than him, okay? The Colts have a rookie. You want to say that he's better than any of the quarterbacks with the Colts? Okay, there's one team. The Texans, C.J. Stroud, I think C.J. Stroud's going to be better than him. I think, okay? The Chiefs, we know. Justin Herbert, not a chance. The Raiders, Jimmy Garoppolo's better than him.
If he actually plays.
Yeah, but he's better than him.
Yeah.
And the Broncos, Russell Wilson. So there's only one team on this list of teams in the AFC that he's actually better than. Okay. And you're going to tell me that if DeAndre Hopkins goes over there, he's going to change the way the AFC and the twists and turns of the AFC? That is a ridiculous statement. It sounds stupid.
Because one older receiver is not going to change anything either, because we've also seen older skill players really have diminished roles and value when it comes to trades and also when it comes to contracts too. And that's why a lot of these other bigger name receivers have not gotten moved yet this offseason. We've been talking about guys like Mike Evans as well that Tampa might be trying to trade to. Even going back a couple of years ago with Julio Jones, how long it took Atlanta to trade him when they were trying to trade him. They don't value these older wide receivers and running backs the same way anymore because of the way the league has changed too. So yes, does it give the Patriots a big-bodied receiver, physical guy that's talented that they don't have? Yeah. Is it enough to amount to 2 or 3 wins like you're claiming? No, it wouldn't go. I would not go that far. Now, head-to-head against Jalen Ramsey, actually he's had good success again. So if you want to say, okay, that'll help him against Miami, fine. But still, that you're judging a very small sample.
You know how crazy that is? It's like everybody attacking the Jets that Aaron Rodgers is only going to give the Jets 2 or 3 more wins this year when they had 7
that's
wins.
A quarterback. That's different.
They had 7 wins with no quarterbacks last year. And I think out of all 3 quarterbacks, I think they had 16 touchdowns to 18 or 19 interceptions, and they still won 7 games. Right. And nobody thinks that Aaron Rodgers is going to win 3 more games than the Jets won last year, which is ridiculous.
Right.
Okay. That's a ridiculous statement. When you look at this statement, DeAndre Hopkins, that he can give them a chance to win 2 or 3 more games, it's a ridiculous statement. He's a wide receiver. You're playing against some of the best corners in the league. You're in your division. You have arguably the 3 best, probably 3 out of those defenses. Okay. And the Patriots are going to be a good defense too. 3 defenses right now that are probably going to be in a top 7, top 8. Mm-hmm. And the Jets and I would say the Miami Dolphins could be a top 3, top 4 defense in the league.
Oh, yeah. And also you got to factor this in with the way that these wide receivers have played against these Jets corners, the Dolphins corners too, is that's not how you're going to beat them anyway. So if the Patriots were going to game plan against the Jets,
you got to run against them.
You either got to run, screen passes, or slot passes. All 3 of those teams. Now, Miami did better against the slot than than they were expected to last year, and did okay against the run at certain points.
And what the Jets did this offseason, adding Al Woods and adding Amos and all these other guys, it's only going to help their nickel packages and the way they're going to stop the run.
Mm-hmm. And the Jets, too, have enough depth that they can make it work where they're able to game plan. I think a lot of the Jets' issues in the second half of the season were more with screen passes and tight end play, which I think the Patriots, even getting Hopkins, would still game plan that way anyway.
I like the Gesicki move. Right. I love that Gesicki move.
And even Bill Belichick bringing in all these quote-unquote flashy guys in the past. They tried it with Josh Gordon. They tried it with Antonio Brown. They did it that didn't work in long stretches either. And I'm not saying that Antonio Brown was a bad Patriot, but we've seen him try that experiment too, and it's not going to amount to this loaded team success.
If you were to tell me right now, Gesicki could change the way they run their offense and how they're going to run the offense this year with the Patriots, I would agree with you, because Gesicki is a guy that's 6'5", 6'6", athletic ability. We saw what he did with Miami, maybe in a Bill O'Brien type of offense where he loves to use his tight ends in the open field. Gesicki could become a superstar in this league. I've always liked him. I know you've always liked him. And I think in the Bill Belichick type of offense, he could change the AFC East. I think he could, because the Jets had problems stopping tight ends last year, and so did the Dolphins. So Gesicki, if you want to say Gesicki could change it, I would agree with you. DeAndre Hopkins, Sauce Gardner is going to be able to stop him. Jalen Ramsey is going to be able to stop him. White, if he's healthy, is going to be able to contain him. So again, we'll go back to it. Tannenbaum, I love you. Mike, you're a great guy. And I would love to, Speedy, reach out to him. We should get him on the show. I would love to talk to Mike Tannenbaum. I know Nathan did, and it was a horrible interview, by the way.
Of course.
But nevertheless, I like Mike. I respect him. I will absolutely attack what he said with this DeAndre Hopkins thing. And honestly, DeAndre Hopkins is not washed up, but he's not the same player he once was.
Right. And also, again, I don't know if there's a stat in football like there is in baseball, too. There's not going to be an individual wide receiver unless you're a superstar that's going to average more than like 1.5 more wins per game.
Right.
Only quarterbacks are going to give you maybe 3 extra wins a year or something like that when you're judging the team value standpoint.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins will add maybe a half or maybe 0.7 or something like that on its own. He's not going to be featured the same way he was in any other team.
Nope. Chris Jones has not reported to the Chiefs minicamp yet, as he's holding out for a new contract. Jones is in his final year of a 4-year, $80 million contract. Jones' contract is currently 7th highest as in the league for defensive tackles. Many defensive tackles have gotten big contracts this season, including Dexter Lawrence, Daron Payne, Ed Oliver, and Jeffrey Simmons. Jones is 28 years old, in the prime of his career, and was a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year last season. Jones had 44 total tackles, 15.5 sacks, 17 tackles for loss, 29 quarterback hits last season. The Chiefs currently have less than $1 million of cap space. Chris Jones will play this year. But if they don't figure out this contract next year, he will be a free agent. You saw what they did with Brown. They let him go. Orlando Brown, but
no, you're right.
I'm sorry. Because I always think of Orlando Pace, if you remember.
Yes.
Hall of Famer. But Orlando Brown is gone now. And now you see Chris Jones possibly going to be let go this offseason. The Honey Badger is gone. He was such a big part of this defense when they won the Super Bowl. So you sit back now, this team is changing. Travis Kelce will stay there. So will Patrick Mahomes. They'll retire there. What are they going to do? Their drafts have not been good over the last couple of years. The one move that they made last year's draft that really stuck out to me was the defensive lineman Karlaftis, who played well last year, but he's not a Chris Brown, a Chris Jones type of player. He's not a guy that's going to take over a game. He's going to be a good elite run stopper in his league. He's not going to be a sack leader. He's not that type of guy in the NFL. He's not. I don't think he's going to be that type of player. He's not Chris Jones. Their draft this year, a lot of people think was one of the worst in the league. And they had a tremendous amount of picks this year for a team that was the Super Bowl champion yet again. I'm sitting here today. I'm going to tell you this right now. I do not believe the Chiefs are winning the Super Bowl this year. And that's not because I'm not a Chiefs fan. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. I think they have a lot of deficiencies. And their secondary is one of those deficiencies that I just don't know if they're going to be cleaning up. They didn't add any offensive help this offseason. They really didn't. They actually lost a lot of players. Mecole Hardman is now playing for the Jets. Everybody was saying they were going to get Odell Beckham. They were going to maybe get DeAndre Hopkins. They'll add a veteran guy. They lost Juju Smith-Schuster. He goes to the Patriots. They lost players. They're not the same team they were last year with the depth. They gave up I think it was a second round or third round pick to add
Tony,
the joystick.
Yep. The compensation of third round pick that the Giants then used to trade for Darren Waller.
Honestly, this is bad. Because if you're going to make Chris Jones angry, he will leave. And they're not a team that franchises defensive linemen. They don't do that.
Now, the Chiefs are interesting because of the way they've operated when it comes to giving up certain star players. You talked about it with Orlando Brown last year. They let him go to the Bengals, and Tyreek Hill the year before they traded, and they ended up replacing that in quantity in another area. Now, you're right. The raw defense, and especially in the secondary, still wasn't great. Their run defense was good. They got a lot of sacks. I think they were second in the league in sacks to the Eagles. But even so, they had to replace that in a different way. Now, the one thing they have not been able to consistently do besides last year is stop the run. on a team basis. And then if you lose Chris Jones, that's going to be a whole nother thing, because then you have to play a 4-3 defensive tackle with not a lot of defensive tackle depth. And that's why it's vital for them to be able to keep him happy. They definitely can't franchise tag him. They're going to have to restructure or cut other players, trade other players to make it work, because otherwise you're going to be losing an anchor of your defense for a long time.
You're
especially
losing
in
everything to your
Spagnuolo's
defense. He is your defense.
Yeah.
And by the way, they didn't bring Clark back, like you said. He's
Right.
gone. And he's still available. And there were stories.
No, the Broncos signed him.
Did they? When
Yes,
did they?
last week.
I didn't even hear about
Yeah.
that. Which is a good fit over there, because I think the way the Broncos are going to run in Joseph's defense, he's the type of guy. I know the Jets were interested in possibly bringing Clark in camp and seeing what he has left, but they're not the same team they once were. And everybody keeps talking about, oh, Kansas City is going to be a favorite this year. I don't think they are. They're in a division that they're much better than probably all the teams in their division, just because they have Patrick Mahomes. But when you look at the AFC as a whole, are they better than the Bengals? Even though the Bengals lost a lot of defensive players this year, and it's going to hurt them, you're going to see defensively that they're going to be hurting in their secondary. I'm telling you right now. But the Bengals are better than they are. The Buffalo Bills added Leonard. I think that absolutely restructures the way they're going to play their defense. And obviously Von Miller coming back, we don't know what he is, but you have Leonard coming on the other side, who had 9.5 sacks with the Rams last year, and with a bad defense. Honestly, they did not play well last year. I think he's going to give you 10 sacks. So Buffalo's a better team than they are. Honestly, I'm just telling you the truth, what I see. The Baltimore Ravens are a better team than they are.
They just got to stay healthy.
I mean, I'm not going to say the Jets, because I still have to see what the Jets are going to do with all the pieces that they added.
Same kind of thing we were talking about yesterday with the Broncos. You have to see everything transitions with Sean Payton.
And everybody's probably going to say I'm crazy. We're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm just telling you what they lost. They're not the same team they were last year. They lost a lot of pieces. And now they have a disgruntled defensive lineman that wants to be paid. What are they going to do?
Yeah, they're going to have to cut some other ones too. And again, they're going to have to figure out these bigger contracts, because we've seen the Chiefs do this a lot too, bring in a lot of veteran minimum players after training camp or even during the preseason too, which I think is going to have to be the approach. Now, obviously they can try to front load or backload the contract, or maybe make it where he doesn't get as much of the cap hit this year. But again, still, is it going to be worth it for the team value?
Watch out for the Jaguars. I'm telling you right now, watch out for them this year. This is a different team. They have Ridley, they have Kirk. This is a different team. They're a very confident defensive team. Doug Peterson is a competent coach. You see Trevor Lawrence, his growth last year. They're going to be scary good too. They might be better than the Chiefs all around too. I mean, their defense is good. They had a lack of offensive line last year because of injuries. Now their offensive line is healthy. They're going to be even better than they were last year. And they were the number one team in the AFC South. Yes, it's a weak division, but they're going to win more than 9 games this year. Their schedule is fairly easy. They're going to win at least 12 games this year. They're dangerous.
Yeah, you have 3 teams with rookie quarterbacks too. If Levis starts, I don't think he'll start. But
and do not count out the Broncos.
No.
I'm telling you right now, because Sean Payton, and you heard it yesterday. We had a competent guy that knows the Broncos very, very well. He said it. He says this Sean Payton is a no bull crap type of coach. He's going to go out there. He doesn't care if you're Russell Wilson. He doesn't care who you are. If you don't play and you don't play right, you're not going to be on that team. So I expect the Broncos to jump. 5 wins last year. They're going to win 10 or 11 this year. That's how good they're going to be.
Yeah, that's a coaching difference. You want to say any one person that can make a difference when it comes to overall win total? A coach will definitely do that. We're dealing with the
They'll
Nathaniel
put
Hackett
up
last year.
They'll put on the points. They definitely will. And if Dalvin Cook goes there, which there's a good chance he could, watch out for that team. They have Williams and Cook as their back-to-back team, the running backs. I mean, that's scary. And their wide receivers, they started to play last year, but I think with Sean Payton and the way he likes to run his offense, they're going to be even more explosive.
I'm curious what he does with the tight ends too, because Greg Dulcich as a rookie last year looked good at certain points in the year, and they still have that other kid Albert O, who's I think on a contract year. So Sean Payton's always had a good track record with tight ends too. I'm curious what he does.
I just think that when you're trying to compare and contrast certain teams and and certain players and the additions of some of these players going from one team to another, you question, but it's all about the quarterback play and it's all about the coaching. If you have the right coach and you can figure out, going into the second half on how to defend certain positions and certain players, if they're dominating the first half, as Bill Belichick is the king of doing that. Okay. And that's what makes the Patriots scary, is Bill Belichick. It's not anybody else. And I can't stand Bill Belichick, but the guy is a genius and he knows how to get into your head and your quarterback's head. The only thing that I think the benefits of the division now in certain divisions in the AFC now is these teams are for real. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of good quarterback play. There's a massive amount of good quarterbacks in the AFC than it is in the NFC. If you look at the NFC right now, I just think, the Giants are very lucky to be in the NFC because they didn't have to do a lot this offseason and they still can be a playoff team. They still can make the playoffs. The Vikings don't scare me. They lose Dalvin Cook for nothing. They don't scare me. All right. The Lions are going to be better this year, but how much better? Right. The Packers, give me a break. The Bears, I think they're going to take a jump this year. I think the Bears, DJ Moore is a beast. I think Fields is good. He's definitely going to be one of my guys that I'm going to draft in the fantasy draft. That's for sure.
Quarterback 3, according to a couple of our fantasy guys.
Yes, I think he's going to be sensational. I think you're going to see a lot of throwing this year for him. I think he's going to be an elite quarterback very soon. The Buccaneers are going to stink. The Panthers have Bryce Young. You heard what we had on yesterday. Mm-hmm. You heard what he said.
And Jason a couple of weeks ago too was worried about him.
The Saints, give me a break. They're an old team that is so many deficiencies to that team. The Falcons, they're young. They have some exciting players. The fact that anybody thinks they're a top 5 team, which was a ridiculous statement, is ridiculous. They're not.
I don't even think they're in the NFC right now.
No. The 49ers, they're going to be good, but you don't even know who your quarterback is. The Seahawks, they'll be good.
Yes.
The Rams, I don't know what the Rams are anymore.
They'll be competitive, but they still have holes.
And the Cardinals stink.
Yikes. Yeah.
They'll probably be the worst team in the NFL, and I expect the Rams to probably trade Kyler Murray in the offseason next year, and they will once again, as the number one pick, draft a quarterback.
Yeah, you wonder where Jonathan Gannon lists among already most hated coaches, and it hasn't even coached a game yet. Kyler Murray already hates him. DeAndre Hopkins already hates him, and the list probably goes on.
Well, because Jonathan Gannon is a guy, if you've ever heard him talk, I heard a couple of press conferences already with him. He just doesn't give a crap. His interviewing, he pretty much gives you one-word answers to every question that he's interviewed with.
I think even too, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who obviously now signed with the Lions, and Kaiser White, I forget where he signed when he left the Eagles. They were even taking shots at him on the way out too from the Eagles. So that doesn't bode well. You were joking last year or a couple of years ago with their coach Sirianni about being Adam Gase 2.0. I think maybe Gannon is Adam Gase 2.0.
100%
at this rate, the way he's going.
I mean, if you sit here today and you kind of compare some of these coaches and obviously new coaches, rookie coaches going to each and every different team that they're going to now, I most of them fail. I would say 90% of them fail. They don't.
Of course.
The good coaches are the ones that stay there along. Like Sean Payton, why do you think the Broncos had to give up a first-round draft pick for Sean Payton? Because he's an elite coach. When he goes to a team, he's there for a while. The Mike Shanahans, the Joe Gibbs, those type of guys. Kyle Shanahan, I can't stand. People think he's a great coach. I don't. The guy's never won a big game ever as an offensive coordinator and as a head coach. He's never won a big game. So I can't sit here and say, hey, you know what? I think Kyle Shanahan is going to win a Super Bowl this year. Because the truth is, he'll get there and he'll lose.
Hey, don't worry. He's got the great Sam Darnold this year.
He stops running the ball all the time. They're always a top 5 running team every single year. And then they'll go deep into the playoffs, or they'll go to the Super Bowl. They're dominating the game. And in the fourth quarter, 5, 6, 7 minutes of the game, they're up, they're this, they're that. All they got to do is run the ball, and then he starts to throw the ball. He makes no sense. The play calling, I don't want to hear it. I hate when Robert Saleh comes up and says that Kyle Shanahan is a genius, because the only genius I've seen him do is lose Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl.
And Robert Saleh doesn't deserve to a pass either for his Super Bowl lows too. I mean, they had no pass rush in that fourth quarter and no adjustments on the Chiefs.
Yeah, that's another story. But hopefully that doesn't happen with the Jets. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we do this every single show. As tonight, Bracket Wars, we have GSP, George, the Animal, St. Pierre versus Mr. Pele, one of the greatest soccer players of all time, the number 3, and the number 11 seed, Mario Lemieux, versus the number 6 seed, Mike Tyson. Here we go.
It's time for Bracket. It's time for Bracket Wars.
All right, we'll do the 14-3 one first. GSP and Pele, probably the simplest name battle so far.
Oh, man. One of my favorite fighters of all time is George St. Pierre. George St. Pierre has a 26-2 overall UFC record, 8 of those wins by knockout. GSP is a 3-time UFC welterweight champion and was ranked number 1 in the welterweight division from 2008 to 2015. GSP holds the record for his weight class for most wins in a title bout. GSP is second all time for his weight class for most consecutive days holding a championship title. I will say this, and I don't know if anybody knows anything about UFC. His dominance for about 7 years, you're talking about a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, an all-world wrestler, a boxer, a kickboxer, a Muay Thai black belt. This guy is the best all-around fighter the UFC has ever had. When you talk about the all-around talent, when you talk about mixed martial arts and combat sport, this guy was the best at what he did because of his natural ability and his athletic ability. And this kid was picked on when he was a kid. Oh, wow. People used to pick on him. He was bullied. And his ability to understand the fight game and really never talk crap, never went out there and talk crap, never put anybody down. He made sure that his fighting and his style did all the talking. George St. Pierre, to me, top 2, top 3 greatest UFC fighters, one of the greatest mixed martial artists to ever live.
And again, I mentioned many times, I'm not a big UFC guy, but I was reading about it. It was like 3 different types of jiu-jitsu he has a belt in, like 3 different types of different color belts in all these other things. And I think he changed weight classes too, which I know you say a lot is hard to do a lot of the time when you have to lose that weight, and he still won a title in that too. I think when you look at well-rounded, you don't get much better than that.
Special. He's not 14. He's not a 14 seed. I don't know how you ranked him a 14th seed. He's better than a 14th seed. As a matter of fact, I probably would have ranked him around John Jones. That's how good he is. But Pele scored 767 goals in 831 league games with Santos from 1956 to 1974. Pele scored 1,281 goals in 1,363 games overall, including international competition and exhibition games. Pele scored 77 goals in 92 games in the Brazilian national team, including 12 goals in 3 World Cup appearances. Pele won 3 World Cups and is the youngest player ever to win a World Cup at the age of 17 in 1958. Some people would say that he's the greatest soccer player to ever live. Okay, his off the field situation, treatment to women, abusive personality, and not taking care of his children and taking care of his family really stands out to me with Pele. His talent on the field was sensational. I mean, the guy was an unbelievable player, but I think who he was off the field really blew his head up, and it affected his personality and who he really and what he probably will be compared to at the end of everything when you try to compare him to Messi and obviously Ronaldo and all these great guys that are coming up now that are going to try to compete with him. So that's what I think about Pele.
Now, we could argue a lot of things about the competition level. We do that a lot with basketball and like playing in the 50s and the 60s. Yeah. You're not going to have the same level of competition worldwide. But I think even soccer was very established still in other spots around the world, too. And he did a lot of international competitions, too, at a time where it wasn't as big of a deal as it is now. And he still scored a lot of goals. And obviously 3 World Cups, but a lot of great goals in competitions to play, too.
Who do you have?
I'm going to take Pele here. I think a lot of his records are not going to be broken too in a lot of these soccer leagues.
I'm going to take George St. Pierre. I think George St. Pierre is. I know a lot of people think John Jones is the greatest mixed martial artist of all time. I beg to differ. I've seen George St. Pierre. He lost 2 fights. He got knocked out, obviously, from Matt Serra, and then he obviously came back and kicked the living you-know-what out of Matt Serra. I remember that fight. He got caught. But besides that, I mean, George St. Pierre lost 2 fights, and the other fight was really a points fight, which I think he probably should have won, but that's just my opinion. I think he lost 1 fight against Matt Serra, but George St. Pierre is the greatest all-around mixed martial artist I've ever seen. He was an all-world wrestler. He's beaten all-world wrestlers, Olympic champion wrestlers like Matt Hughes, okay? And he was a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, never got tapped out, ever in his life get tapped out by anybody, even black belts, even before he became a black belt. Muay Thai, he was an all-world Muay Thai fighter and boxer and kickboxer. He was a kickboxing champion. Yeah, I'm going with George St. Pierre. I'm not taking Pele.
All right, so Twitter polls will decide this one.
Yep.
All right, now in the number 11 seed, Mario Lemieux, number 6, Mike Tyson.
This is such an interesting combination because some people could say that Mario Lemieux was the greatest hockey player ever to live. To Mike Tyson, probably the greatest heavyweight to ever live. All right, Lemieux had 690 goals, 1,033 assists, and 1,723 points, total points, in 915 career NHL games. Lemieux was a 9-time All-Star, 3-time Hart Trophy winner, 4-time Pearson Trophy winner, 6-time Art Ross Trophy winner, and 2-time Conn Smythe Trophy winner. Lemieux led the NHL in points 6 times, had over 50 goals in six seasons, and over 90 assists in 6 seasons. Lemieux had 76 goals and 96 assists and 172 points in 107 career playoff games. Lemieux averaged 1.88 points per game in his career, second all time to Wayne Gretzky. I honestly, everybody knows my answer. Mario Lemieux, to me, is the greatest hockey player ever to live, over Gordie Howe, over Bobby Orr, Rocket Richard, Wayne Gretzky. This guy didn't retire 5 years with leukemia. He would have broken Wayne Gretzky's numbers. He would have broken all of them. I think he might have came short with assist by maybe 400 or 500. Right. But goals, he would have broken the goals record. I mean, he had 690 goals, and he did it faster probably than anybody in NHL history. Okay, so I think he did do it faster than anybody in NHL history. So I think he's the greatest hockey player to ever live.
Yeah, 1.88 points per game, too. Like, I think the next highest on the list, I forget who it was at the time, all time, besides Gretzky, like, even the next highest was like 1.5. So that's still a big, stark difference when it comes to that. And yeah, you have to feel bad for something like that. He had to retire for 5 years. And I think he definitely would have gotten the goals. Whether he gotten the assists is another question, because that also gives a team-dependent stat. But he was as good as it gets as an offensive player and an all-around great talent.
Mike Tyson. I hate when you match these guys up because two guys that changed their sports. Tyson had a career record of 50-6, 44 of those wins by knockout. Tyson was the undisputed heavyweight champion from 1987 and 1990. Tyson is the youngest heavyweight boxer to win a title at the age of 20. Actually, it was 19, Speedy. Tyson is the first heavyweight boxer simultaneously holding the WBA, WBC, and IBF title. Tyson is the only heavyweight boxer to hold 3 of those titles at once. I'm going to say this. Everybody keeps saying Muhammad Ali is the greatest heavyweight to ever live. Honestly, in a 6-year span, there was nobody better than this guy. Nobody could fight this guy. He was the hardest hitter, 2,500 pounds of pressure off of every single punch. Just imagine being hit with one of those punches. I mean, the guy was vicious and scary, and he didn't even have to punch you for you to be scared when he's standing in the ring. He would fight guys that were 6-7 inches bigger than him, and he would knock them out in the first round. He was unbelievable, speed-wise, ability-wise, one of the greatest athletic talents we've ever seen. And unfortunately, all the stuff behind him, all the people that tried to rob him, and all the different people that he put around him affected him, and losing so many people at such a young age that affected his life and his growth in the sport. I think could go down as one of the greatest, if not the greatest boxer, and I believe the greatest heavyweight to ever live.
Right, in 4 years, holding that record is very impressive too. In that era of boxing too, where you had a lot of greats that some of them were towards the end of the career, fine, but still, he held the title for that long. Usually, there's one that'll get you here and there, and he had so many, I think, first round knockouts too, which is very impressive too for somebody of that stature.
6 years, I don't think anybody will ever compare to that 6 years of his dominance, and he didn't just fight 1 or 2 or 3 fights in a year. He fought. There were years he would fight 5, 6. I mean,
that's unheard of to me. That's
I
crazy.
I know it's crazy. It really is, and that's why he was the first 100 millionaire. I think he made the most money in a fight we've ever seen in history. I think it was 150 million he made.
Right, and I think he also had the Punch-Out video game too, which was a big transcendent thing at the time too, because we were talking about it like a couple of weeks ago with Tiger Woods and Shaun White, who had all these like popular things, and he did it in the 80s and the 90s too, which you didn't have many of those at the time too. You had Bo Jackson with Tecmo Bowl, and that was really it.
And Keith, the only reason why, and I love Holyfield, he's one of my favorite fighters, and I'm a big boxing guy. Holyfield, if he fought Mike Tyson in his prime before he went to jail, Holyfield was not going to beat him. Holyfield was not going to beat him. And Muhammad Ali was not the greatest heavyweight of all time. You want to argue that? I would say Joe Louis was a better heavyweight than him, and Joe Frazier beat Muhammad Ali once, okay? And didn't just beat him, he kicked the living crap out of him, all right? So Mike Tyson was a better, in the 6 year span, Muhammad Ali's best 6 years was not better than Mike Tyson's. Holyfield's was not. What did he say? Yes, he was. What did he say? Yes, he was. What do you mean? Yes, he was. No, he wasn't. Muhammad Ali is one of the most overrated athletes of all time. For the fact that anybody puts him as one of the greatest athletes and the greatest boxer of all times is on drugs, okay? I watch boxing for years. I am a boxing guy. Muhammad Ali is an overrated boxer. Again, I'm going to say it. Who did he beat? Liston, it's been said that his big fight when he won the title from Liston, Liston was paid to lose that fight or his family was going to be killed. Do you know that story? So I'm sorry. He is one of the most overrated heavyweight champions of all time. And I don't care what anybody says. Rocky Marciano was a better fighter than him. That's it. Who do you got?
I guess you two are going to argue about something off air. I'm going to go with Tyson, though, because I just think his dominant stretch as a heavyweight, like it's, I think, harder to do to keep that kind of consecutive thing in an individual sport like that more than a team sport. So I'm going to give the edge to Tyson.
I'm going with Mario Lemieux.
All righty.
I think Mario Lemieux is the greatest hockey player to ever live. I mean, look at his numbers and look at the way he did it. And 5 years less than Wayne Gretzky, and he still dominated. Even when he came back from leukemia, he scored 50 goals. I think it was 2 out of the 3 or 4 years that he played, he scored 50 goals. I don't think he scored anything lower than 40 in the years that he came back. I mean, the guy's unbelievable. Big, 6'6", best hands I've ever seen. I've never seen a guy bang the puck off the back of the net and back of the boards and pass the puck to another player to put the puck in the net. And it was like, you ever play horse and you say, bound, it's going to have to hit this corner. And bound. That's how he did it. That's how he played in a hockey game. He would call the corner and pretty much call where he was going to pass the puck by hitting it off a post to another player or hitting off the back of the net or back of the post. It was unbelievable. He was an unbelievable player. I'm going to go with Mario.
All right, so the Twitter polls will decide both of this one. So that's the end of the first round now. So we'll start second round next week.
All right. I'm interested to see how everybody's going to vote. I mean, a lot of people that don't know Mario Lemieux is going to take Mike Tyson, honestly. That's my opinion, because Mario Lemieux was so hidden from what the league was in the 90s and the late 80s. I just, everybody knows Wayne Gretzky. People forget how great Mario Lemieux was. So I'm willing to bet Mike Tyson will move on just because he's more of a name. But
Well, same thing last week, like LeBron versus Bobby Orr. Like everyone's going to vote for LeBron because everyone knows him. Type
Yeah,
thing. So
but-
there's always going to be that conflict with popularity now, recency bias.
Yeah, so there you go. That is Bracket Wars. It was a great show tonight. Thank you to Jim McNally. He was fantastic. Tim Alcorn. He's always been fantastic on our show. Thank you to all the fans that tune into our show throughout the country, throughout the world. Thank you to everybody. I mean, seriously, what we do, and I know a lot of people sit here and think that it's so easy to talk for 3 hours and entertain people. It's not. It's not the easiest thing. And to have the energy that we do and stuff like that. I do it because I want the fans to see that, the benefits of just being entertained for 3 hours. There's nothing going on in sports right now. As a matter of fact, we're not even watching any sports. We're watching a movie throughout the show. Usually we have sports games on. I think at this time of year, when it comes to sports, you need entertainment for sports radio and just to interact with and talk sports with guys that actually know what they're talking about. 1, 2, and like to make and joke around and laugh and all that other stuff. So we really appreciate all the fans as always. Keep listening to us, and we'll be back next week on Wednesday. As always, Speedy, you have anything to say before we go?
Yes, happy Father's Day to
Yes.
all the fathers out there.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day to my father and all
My
the
father
father-
passed away, so
Yes.
I'm not going to be able to enjoy that.
Yeah, and a shout out to all the people as well that lost their fathers as well. It's a very difficult time for anybody that loses a loved one like that, especially if you were very close, like you were, Errol, with your father as well. So it's all sympathy, condolences to anyone that's lost their father, but as well, also happy Father's Day to all the ones in my family. Too.
Happy
And my-
Father's Day, Keith. I know
Yes.
your son is a piece of garbage, but you are a father and you deserve to be respected. Happy Father's Day to every single father out there. You deserve it. Good fathers deserve it. People
Yes.
that, take care of their kids and want to be there for their kids. Those are the guys that deserve to be respected. And even the fathers that are piece of crap deadbeats, you don't deserve to be a father. And hopefully stepfathers and the other fathers that are there and taking care of foster kids and stuff like that, they deserve to be celebrating Father's Day as well.
Right, and also on a personal note, shout out to fathers and my grandfathers too. Both of them have passed away recently. My grandfather, on my mother's side, passing away about a month ago, and then my father's side passing away at the end of 2021. They were both great fathers for the previous generation and great grandfathers to me and my brothers as well.
Listen to the Weekend Crunch on Saturday. It will be live at 7 p.m. on 103.9 FM here in Long Island. If you don't live here on Long Island, go to iHeartRadio and look up LI News Radio, and you can hear the show. We will be live, as always, on Saturday night at 7 p.m. Great show. Who do we have next week? Anything planned?
Nothing yet.
All right, but I'm sure we will. Thank you to the fans, and we will talk to you next week. Good night, everybody.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews,